Chapter 445. The car drove directly into Diaoyu Terrace. When they passed through the arched door, they looked at the solemn national emblem, and could no longer suppress the pride in their hearts. Jiang Yi held Lin Yueling's hand tightly. Back then, the Jiang family and the Lin family were also very powerful, but they couldn't enter this place. Today they were here with such status. It was really an honor. Lin Yueling wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. It was not an exaggeration to say that she was the richest woman in the world now. Her son was a man of his words. The state banquet in Diaoyu Terrace was ready. The big boss personally welcomed Jiang Yi and his wife to their seats. They chatted and laughed. The big boss was also in high spirits. Behind him were the leaders of foreign countries. Even the one from America followed behind him like a servant. Jiang Xiao and his family sat together with the big boss and several big bosses of Diaoyu Terrace. The other foreign guests were all sitting in the second row. They could only look at the people sitting in front of them chatting and laughing. After 3 rounds of drinks, the foreign guests obeyed the instructions of the Chinese etiquette master and stood up to make a toast. These foreigners were already scared out of their wits. Jiang Luoxia was too powerful. The knife in his hand was 100 times more terrifying than a nuclear weapon. Otherwise, they wouldn't have bowed down to him. However, Jiang Luoxia's temperament was always ruthless. In the face of such a barbaric and powerless person, the so-called public opinion and political tactics that they usually played with were all useless. In the face of absolute power, any conspiracy was useless. All they could do now was pray. However, they were used to being high and mighty. One could imagine the anger in their hearts. The one from America even thought that after returning to America, he must use the power of the country to take revenge on Jiang Luoxia. The most important thing now was to survive. And Jiang Yi and Lin Yueling were their hope. These two were the Empress Dowager and the Emperor Emeritus. If they served them well, they might have a chance to survive and return to their homeland. Yes, old Mr. Jiang, Madam Lin, I'm Rogart. It's an honor to make your acquaintance. Here's a toast to you. He held onto a bottle of white wine that could only be drunk by Cathayans. Cheers. He finished the wine in one gulp. Lin Yueling wasn't a common woman. She had seen this big boss of America Bang many times on TV. America Bang was a superpower. It could be said that it was the most powerful country in the world. Lin Yueling was really flattered that the big boss of the most powerful country came over to toast her like a junior. But she found that her son and the big boss were very cold to this person, which made her very surprised. At the same time, she also realized that she should not talk nonsense. Jiang Yi even symbolically responded, Mr. Jiang, we have offended you before and we sincerely apologize. Also, we are willing to pay the price. Please give us another chance, Mr. Jiang. Jiang Xiao glanced at him indifferently. You started this? Rogart wanted to deny it, but this matter was indeed started by America. After Jiang Xiao's attack, public opinion was in an uproar. He was worried that he wouldn't have a chance to open the door to Cathayans. This matter gave him the opportunity. Coupled with Japan's request, it was a logical thing to do. Thunder God suppressed Jiang Xiao, and their country could suppress Cathayans. It was a sure-win situation. With so many people swooping down, it was a sure thing. Everyone was waiting to get a share of the big cake. Who knew? No, it's true. But because of Mr. Jiang's actions in Japan, we have to give the people an explanation. Yes, it's just to deal with the people. Jiang Xiao said. Give the people an explanation. My attack in Japan has nothing to do with you. Do you think you're awesome and want to meddle in everything? Or do you think you're the best and want to listen to everything you say? Rogart's cold sweat dripped down. No, Mr. Jiang, you've misunderstood. We don't mean that at all. We just want to give the people an explanation. The people of America have their own ideas. If we don't give them an explanation, they will make a scene and organize demonstrations. Jiang Xiao said, Is that so? What does this have to do with them? What does it have to do with them? Rogart stuttered and couldn't say anything. Since you like to meddle in other people's business and have such a sense of justice, you have to do it to the end. Jiang Xiao asked someone to turn on the big screen. It was a video sent back by the satellite. From the video, it should be America. In the past, it would be affected by technical interference, but now, It didn't dare to interfere. Isn't this America? Rogart immediately recognized that it was his country in the video. It was the most prosperous place on earth. Tall buildings stood tall, shopping malls were everywhere, and pedestrians were hurrying on the streets. It was a bustling scene. When he saw this scene, Rogart was quite proud. As long as he returned there, with so many people in such a powerful country, how could they not take care of Jiang Luoxia? Mr. Jiang, what do you mean by this? What do I mean? Jiang Xiu stood up and glanced at him. His eyes flashed with a terrifying murderous intent. His forehead flashed with light. With a swoosh, he waved his hand and a flying dagger flew out. The dagger flashed and actually shot out of the door. In the distance was the palace. The dagger flew up as if it had a mind of its own. It flew over the top of the palace and rushed into the sky. In an instant, it disappeared from everyone's sight. What on earth was this? Rogart was even more confused. He was just a politician. He didn't awaken and didn't understand martial arts. You'll understand soon enough. Jiang Xiu then sat down and drank by himself. He didn't look at Rogart again. This made Rogart very angry. He was the big boss of America, and Jiang Xiu had humiliated him again and again. Just as Jiang Xiu drank his third glass of wine, his hand stopped in the air. The screen suddenly lit up, and a saber light appeared in the sky of Smith Barney. Mr. Rogart, you should have heard of my nature. I never repay the kindness of those who offend me. Instead, I kill all of them, leaving no one alive. Oh my God. Boom. That heaven-piercing long sword slashed down on Smith Barney. Under the light of the sword, some houses collapsed. Smoke and dust filled the sky, obscuring the entire video feed. This scene was very familiar. The last time it happened was in Japan. This time, it happened in the entire America. Oh my God. Even the people present could feel the earth shaking violently. The wine cups on the table were about to shake, and the wine was rippling in circles. It wasn't just Rogart. The other overseas divisions, and even the people of Hua Nation, couldn't help but stand up and stare at the screen in shock. It's gone. Grote's mind was blank, but he had seen the state of Re-Capital after the smoke and dust dispersed. It was barren just like the surface of the moon. And Smith Barney would be the same under the smoke and dust. An entire country would be destroyed just like that. Clang. He fell to the ground and knocked over the table behind him. The plates on the table fell to the ground, but he didn't notice. It's gone. America, it's gone. He turned his head and looked at Jiang Xiu, who was drinking. He felt his eyes turn red. They were so red that they almost fell out. Devil, you're a devil. Jiang Xiu slowly turned his head. His cold gaze made Rogart swallow his words. Since they like to meddle in other people's business so much, I'll meddle in their business too. Rogart's face was ashen. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This price, this lesson, wasn't it a little too great? At this moment, even the big boss was dumbfounded. This matter was too big. This slash would definitely change more than just the world's structure. It would probably affect the development of the entire human race in the future. That blank space would be the first to grow. The ones who would control it might not be humans. The current exotic beasts were also growing very quickly. The members of the overseas division were trembling. Although Smith Barney was the main culprit, they were also accomplices. Would he? Thinking of this, they no longer had the courage to stand in front of Jiang Xiu. One by one, they knelt down. Mr. Jiang, calm down. Mr. Jiang, calm down. Jiang Xiu glanced at them. You seem to have signed a contract with us. Swoosh. Everyone's expression changed. Chapter 446. The spirit stone guarding the country had been absorbed by Jiang Xiu. And it was inevitable that the alternate world would descend upon Hua Nation. Hua Nation was vast and rich in resources, and there would be many demon gods when the time came. Compared to the invasion of the United States, Jiang Xiu was more willing to give them a piece of pure land. Jiang Xiu said, "Let's have another negotiation meeting." Okay. The Overseas Diplomatic Corps did not dare to say no at all. In order to survive, they had to agree to any conditions. It was too terrifying. The ground was still shaking. Not only did it not weaken, but it also seemed to be getting stronger. Everyone looked up at the video. From the angle of the space camera, they saw a long groove in the smoke and dust that filled the sky, and it was constantly widening. Boom, boom. The earth was shaking obviously, and the people standing there fell directly to the ground. The video clearly showed that there was an obvious crack on the surface of the earth, as if it had been cut open by a saber light. Amid the rumbling sounds, countless broken stones flew out from the crack, and some of them were suspended in the air. Oh my God! The earth was still shaking, and from the video, the earth had been forcibly split into two halves. Jiang Luoxia had cut the earth in half with a blade. The separation of the earth lasted for about half an hour. Judging from the satellite images, the distance between the two halves of the earth was no longer just a crack. Instead, it was as wide as the radius of the earth. Countless fine floating rocks inside were completely cut in half. They were dumbfounded and tongue-tied. Was he still human? He was really a god. Jiang Xiu said calmly, half belongs to the humans, and the other half belongs to the awakened beasts. With the middle as the boundary, we can never interact with each other, or we can sign a contract to establish diplomatic relations. Some of the members of the American division were already stunned. Their territory had been taken away, and they had to move to another place. Jiang Xiu said, from now on, our half will be called the human world, and the other half will be the demon realm. Jiang Xiu was not talking about the affairs of a city or a country, but the affairs of the entire human race and this world. As the only earth god in this world, he definitely had the strength and qualifications to do so. Yes, Mr. Jiang. Jiang Xiu spoke in a flat tone, as if he was telling the truth. Everyone present dared not to disobey him. The elegance of the top warrior on the divine list was fully displayed. Earth was about to enter a brand new world. Many people's eyes were still on the video. It was as if an interstellar war had taken place. The Earth had been forcefully split into two halves. There was a strange magnetic field between the two halves of the sphere. It was unknown if human aircraft could still fly, and that complete picture of Earth would become a thing of the past. There was no doubt that Cathay would dominate the world in the future. Let's continue drinking. The world was shocked by the news. Jiang Luoxia's reputation reached its peak. He ranked first on the divine roll, and dominated the history of mankind. If it were someone else, they would definitely ask all the countries to hang up a portrait of them. But our spiritual cultivation is very low-key. Once it's done, we'll leave, hiding our achievements and fame. When they returned to the manor, Jiang Yi and his wife were also very emotional. Fortunately, Jiang Xiu had done many earth-shattering things before. Otherwise, they would have been really shocked. The sun was still warm. It fell on the flowers and plants in the manor. It was quiet and peaceful. Lin Yueling was sitting in the yard. When she saw Jiang Xiu coming, she waved at him and said, "Son." When she first saw the baby in swaddling clothes, Lin Yueling had never thought that one day he would be so successful and dominate the history of mankind. However, when a man had a career, he also had to consider personal issues. Now, she was waiting for this matter to happen. She was waiting to hold a chubby grandson. Sit next to Mom. Jiang Xiu sat lazily on the bench, half squinting at the sun in the sky. Before I came, guess who came to see me? Jiang Xiu shook his head. No matter how powerful he was not good at divination. Su Su and Ran Ran. Jiang Xiu did not answer. He knew Lin Yueling very well. She was a soft-hearted person. What's interesting is that the two sisters didn't come to see me together. They came separately. Ran Ran came first and then Su Su. They came to see me because they wanted to see you. Jiang Xiu said. After all, we're still friends. If they wanted to see me, they could have just called me. Why would they tell you? Maybe they want me to say a few good words for them. Lin Yueling paused for a moment. Son, what are you thinking? Human nature is ugly. As the saying goes, husband and wife are birds in the same forest. When disaster strikes, they fly away separately. Don't test yourself. You can't withstand the test. They must have come to see you because they want to get back together. I think that's fine too. But if you really can't get over this in your heart, Mom won't force you. Jiang Xiu said. Cheng Lingsu is also a proud person. Now that the Cheng clan is doing well, of course, it won't be as good as being with me. But it won't be bad either. She doesn't need to make things difficult for herself. Lin Yueling said. You're saying that I misunderstood them? Jiang Xiu nodded. Then do as you wish. What did Sister Ran Ran say to you? Lin Yueling thought for a moment and said, nothing special. She said that she came to see me and chatted for a while. Also, she mentioned that she hasn't seen you for a long time. She asked me to tell you when I see you. If you're free, let's meet for tea. With Cheng Lingren's personality, it must be very difficult for her to do this after being rejected once. Cheng Lingran probably cared about him, but this wasn't the relationship he wanted. Jiang Xiu turned his body and looked at his mother. Mom, I might have to leave. Leave? Where are you going? Jiang Xiu was now an earth god. He could enter the fourth heaven of the Great Void. He didn't know what it would be like to enter the fourth heaven of the Great Void. He might not be able to return. Besides, even if he could return successfully, he would have to leave Earth and embark on the 100-year journey back to the immortal Martial Continent. Immortal cultivators cut off the mortal world. In the immortal Martial Continent, many disciples were chosen to go up the mountain because of their talent. After 100 years in the mountains, when they returned, their families were already bones. This was the norm for immortal cultivators. The great Tao was merciless. Leave Earth and go to a place far, far away. Lin Yueling was stunned. Are you really going to leave? Jiang Xiu had split the earth with his saber. Lin Yueling had such a feeling that the earth could no longer contain this flood dragon. You can leave, but before that, you have to marry a wife and give birth to a child before you leave. At this moment, Jiang Xiu was stunned. He had never thought of leaving behind an heir on earth. More importantly, it was already difficult enough for immortals to have children. And it was even more difficult for gods to have children. The more noble the bloodline of a god, the more difficult it was for them to reproduce. This was the restriction of heaven and earth. Judging from the current situation, Jiang Xiu's divine bloodline should be quite interesting. He was afraid that he would not be able to reproduce. Moreover, even if he could, mortal women couldn't. Mom, aren't you making things difficult for me? Lin Yueling said. How is this making things difficult for you? You've grown up and have great ambitions. Mom won't stop you, and I won't stop you. But is it too much for you to leave a descendant for the Jiang family? A voice came from behind. Your mom is right. I also have the same intention. Jiang Yi appeared behind him. If it's fast, it'll only take a year. If it's slow, it'll only take 3 years. Jiang Xiu smiled bitterly. Let alone 1 or 3 years. Even if you gave him 300 years, he might not be able to do it. But he couldn't say this. This was related to his face. Your parents are ordinary people. They won't live for too long. 30 years, maybe 40 years. To you, it's just the blink of an eye. If you can't have a child, you can accompany us in death. Jiang Xiu said, Mom, then hurry up and find a partner. Don't waste any time. Jiang Xiu thought about it. The only person who met the requirements now was Nangong Ko-er. But Nangong Ko-er was a good girl, and he couldn't hurt her. In fact, he was also conflicted in his heart. If he had to have a child with someone, the only one he could accept was Cheng Lingran. Let's go back to Jiangnan first. The next day, Jiang Xiu and his family took a private jet back to Jiangnan. The world had changed greatly. The earth had been split into 2 halves. Naturally, Jiangnan had caused quite a stir, but it didn't affect Jiangnan in the slightest. It was said that all the people on that planet had migrated to Jiangnan. In terms of the land per capita, the population had doubled. People in the real estate industry believed that the real estate industry would become more developed. Chapter 447. No matter how the earth changed, whether it was natural disasters or man-made disasters, or famine, the days would go on as usual. Many people even tiptoed to the border of the hemisphere to take a look at the Earth's Duanheng. From the photos on the news, there was an intense light shining from inside. Some people said that it was Jiang Luo's blade. Some people had predicted that it would become a tourist destination. Cheng Lingran also saw a business opportunity, but she was helpless. There was no other reason. After the family and the Jiang family became enemies, The Chung clan couldn't get land in Jiang City. She went to find Lin Yueling with this excuse. It was good to change this situation, but she still wanted to make it clear to Jiang Xiu. They grew up together. Not only were they friends, but they also confided in each other. Especially after Cheng Lingran found out that she hurt Jiang Xiu, she wanted to make it clear, even though she was also hurt in this matter. After Jiang Xiu returned home, Lin Yueling was nagging. Mom was impulsive back then. I would rather destroy 10 temples than destroy a marriage. I shouldn't have let you divorce. Little did she know that Lin Yueling fell into the hole dug by her son. Jiang Xiu shook his head and said, Mom, you're too soft-hearted. Cheng Lingsu talked to you and you were persuaded? He paused for a moment before continuing. It's impossible between us. Not to mention the divorce, I made her lose a great opportunity at the Gods Discover Exchange Conference in Hangzhou. I could feel the strong hostility in her eyes when she looked at me. Lin Yueling said, How did the husband and wife end up like this? Even if you can't be friends, you shouldn't hate each other. Jiang Xiu said, I don't mind her hating me. Lin Yueling knew that Jiang Xiu's heart was as firm as iron. He didn't care whether Cheng Lingsu hated him or not. She sighed helplessly and said, But when I think about how she saved me and my son, I feel guilty. After Jiang Xiu heard this, he fell silent. He went to the window and cast his gaze at Yi Bing's house in the distance. However, there was no movement inside. She was not at home. This snake demon god had to get to the bottom of things before he left. I'm going out. Cheng Lingran didn't expect Jiang Xiu to take the initiative to call her. When she picked up the phone, her eyes couldn't help but redden. All the grievances exploded at this moment. She cried immediately. You still know how to call me? She tried to make her voice sound normal. Jiang Xiu said, My mom said that you're looking for me. Cheng Lingran really didn't want to talk to him, but she couldn't bear to. She could only say, Where are you? I'm not far from your company. Fanqing Coffee Bar. When Cheng Lingran saw Jiang Xiu, she had already wiped away her tears and carefully dressed up. The current Cheng Lingran was becoming more and more like his memory of her in the future. Looking at her from afar, he saw that she was tall and graceful. Her waist was especially thin. When she walked, she swayed slightly. Her legs were straight and crossed. She walked leisurely. It could be said that she was swaying and charming. The wind by the river blew non-stop. She fiddled with her messy hair from time to time. The grass under her feet was green and shiny with water droplets. Her spiritual aura made people marvel at the exquisiteness of Jiangnan women. Her limpid eyes were a little red. She must have just cried. She looked very lovable. If Auntie didn't tell you, did you plan to never see me again? Jiang Xiu didn't say anything. At this moment, the waiter walked over. What would you like to drink? Juice. Cheng Lingran felt that Jiang Xiu was rejecting her. He deliberately alienated her. She lowered her head sadly. Her long eyelashes fluttered gently. It's my fault. I shouldn't have said those words to make you sad. Actually, you like me, don't you? She lowered her head even more. Jiang Xiu said, I think so. Cheng Lingran got an affirmative answer. Her hands on her skirt tightly grasped it. She was very happy. She had been looking forward to this scene for a long time. She had thought of many opening remarks. But when she sat down, she decided to make it clear. After so many years of separation, she didn't want to miss it again because of cowardice and reserve. I like you too. Jiang Xiu chuckled. He turned his head and looked at the river in the distance. There's nothing about me that makes you like me. Cheng Lingran raised her head. She saw a flash of pain in Jiang Xiu's eyes. She heard him say, Sister, feelings can't be given alms. I don't. Cheng Lingran shook her head hard. Jiang Xiu said, I don't know about the situation of the Cheng clan. I should pay attention to this matter. I guess my father's anger has subsided. If the Cheng clan wants to take the land again, they should make it convenient. No minor repairs. Don't misunderstand, okay? Cheng Lingran looked at Jiang Xiu opposite her. Her eyes were shining with tears. I'm not giving alms, and I won't use it as a transaction for the development of the Cheng clan. Jiang Xiu's vision became blurred. He could see many things clearly, but he couldn't see clearly in front of Cheng Lingran. Maybe it was because his feelings were too deep. Then will you marry me? Cheng Lingran nodded immediately. But after nodding, she shook her head. If I marry you, no matter what my parents and Su Su think, my family will fall apart. Jiang Xiu sighed. A cold hand pressed on the back of his hand. Her fingers were very beautiful. The fingernails were neatly clipped and sparkled under the sun. I can't marry you now, but I can always be with you. Maybe in 10 or 20 years we'll both be old and grown up. This matter won't be so serious. Cheng Lingran avoided his eyes again. It was obvious that she was very afraid. She was a person who could never be selfish. I want a child. Cheng Lingran looked up at Jiang Xiu in astonishment. Her mouth opened slightly, and she spat out a word with difficulty. Ah. She didn't seem to understand, but her pretty face was a little red. This was also the reason why Jiang Xiu came to Cheng Lingran. If he had to leave a child on earth, he hoped that it would be a child with Cheng Lingran to make up for the regret of his previous life. In his heart, he only wanted to have a child with Cheng Lingran. This matter should. Cheng Lingran cleverly changed the topic and said, Have you seen Su Su when you came back? Jiang Xiu shook his head. Why don't you meet Su Su first, and then we can talk about our matter? Jiang Xiu knew that the biggest obstacle between them was Cheng Lingsu. It seemed that he could only meet Cheng Lingsu first and make all the debts clear. He nodded. Where is she? Cheng Lingran said. She's also in Jiang City. Her number hasn't changed. She reached out and pulled Jiang Xiu up and said, Don't sit here. I'll take you to eat. I haven't had lunch yet. When Jiang Xiu turned around, Cheng Lingran hugged him from behind. She leaned on Jiang Xiu's back and sobbed softly. Don't cry. If you cry again, people will think that I'm a hooligan. I'll be wronged if I get caught by the police. You're not only a hooligan but also a bastard. The last time I went to your house to find you, why did you ignore me? Do you know how sad I was? Cheng Lingran cried very fiercely. In the small lounge, the two of them were passionately entangled. Cheng Lingran was surprisingly enthusiastic and active that day. The white sheets became a mess. I'm going to be pregnant. Can you send me abroad? Jiang Xiu said. It's not that easy. You have to work harder in the future. Cheng Lingran didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She felt that she had fallen into a trap again. I'm willing to do whatever you want. I'm just afraid that you'll hurt your body. I'm not afraid. Jiang Xiu's eyes were red. Cheng Lingran let out a soft cry. Her delicate body trembled slightly. She whispered in Jiang Xiu's ear, I'll accept whatever you do to me in the future. After a long time, Cheng Lingran snuggled in Jiang Xiu's arms. Her body was soft and weak. Her languid posture was beautiful. She said faintly, I think I have to correct it. This will really hurt your body. Didn't you say that you're not afraid? Now I'm afraid. Cheng Lingran glanced at him charmingly. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door outside the lounge. Cheng Lingran shivered and asked nervously, Who is it? Sister, are you inside? Hearing Cheng Lingsu's voice, Cheng Lingran covered her mouth in horror and said, Oh my God. She hurriedly said to Jiang Xiu, It's Su Su. What should we do? Hide. Jiang Xiu said, If you know, just know. Cheng Lingran's pretty face suddenly turned pale. She shook her head and said, No. Sister, what are you doing inside? I'll open the door and come in. The door lock was pulled. Chapter 448. The door opened very quickly, and a small gap had already been opened. At this moment, Cheng Lingran was scared out of her wits. She saw Jiang Xiu walking towards the wall, and before his body turned into smoke, he had already finished putting on his clothes, passed through the wall, and disappeared without a trace. Sister, what are you doing? Cheng Lingran curled up in her bed, still in shock, and said, Sleeping? In her heart, she was secretly relieved. Just now she really almost suffocated. If Su Su really found out, she really didn't know how to face it. I heard that guy went back to Jiangnan. Jiang Xiu wasn't in the mood to listen to what the two sisters were saying. He floated forward, and after passing through several walls, he arrived at a room that looked like an office. Originally, he didn't want to stop, but he heard a delicate female voice. Don't be in such a hurry. This tone was too As an experienced driver, he could tell at once. The problem was this was an office and it was in broad daylight. She didn't know how to restrain herself. But it seemed like spiritual cultivation was doing this kind of thing. It was a classic example of only allowing officials to set fires, but not allowing the common people to light lamps. After being pressed against the wall by a man and hearing a charming cry, Jiang Xiu secretly cursed his bad luck. First, he was caught in the act, and now he saw someone else doing such a thing. Look at how anxious you are. Jiang Xiu couldn't help but shake his head. The employees of the Cheng clan were actually having an affair in the office. If this kind of situation existed, how could the Cheng clan be any better? However, thinking about the Cheng clan today, there was almost nothing to do. This was probably because they were too free. Soon, the white-collar female cried out in a sad and sorrowful voice. Damn, this is simply torture. Maybe our spiritual cultivation's body temperature has risen. Fortunately, that man was done after a few rounds. Jiang Xiu wiped the sweat from his forehead and thought to himself, I should be the unluckiest earth god in history. She was about to leave, but who knew that the man would ask, Shaoli, is that Chen guy as powerful as me? The woman said, Are you crazy? Why do you have to compare everything to him? There's nothing between me and Manager Chen. There's something wrong with his body. The man said proudly, Aren't I awesome? Spiritual cultivation felt like 10,000 alpacas were galloping wildly in his heart. What the F***ck? When I came forward, you had not even started, but when I was about to leave, you had already finished. It was less than a minute in total. How dare you talk about divorce? I've seen thick-skinned people, but I've never seen such a thick-skinned person. That female voice was very pleasing. You're tormenting me to death. Spiritual cultivation almost burst out laughing. Sister, is it really okay for you to lie like this? Did you find out what I asked you to find out? The female voice said. This is indeed very strange. It seems that Ms. Chung is immune to drugs. No matter how strong the drug is, it doesn't work. I advise you to give up on Ms. Chung. She used to be Mr. Zhang's sister-in-law. That's me. I don't have the guts to do that. It's Su Qingwen who chased after her to no avail, and became angry. Jiang Xiu had already left, but when he heard this, he couldn't help but squat down and shout. His eyes flashed coldly. It seemed that Cheng Lingran was still completely in the dark. If Jiang Xiu hadn't planted a powerful amulet on Cheng Lingran last time, she might have been tricked by these villains. The anger in his heart was rising. It could be said that he was really lucky today to run into this matter. Otherwise, he didn't know what kind of consequences it would have caused. Su Qingwen? In these years, in order to protect the Cheng clan and develop it, Cheng Lingran had put in a lot of effort. It was inevitable that she had to deal with these rich and famous people. Of course, with her appearance, it was inevitable that she would be coveted. She had been very careful, but she still fell for it. Killing these two people would only dirty his hands. Moreover, if he killed them directly, it would only dirty his hands. There were plenty of people who would deal with this couple. He turned and walked out of the Cheng clan. Just as he stepped out of the door, Jiang Xiu received an unfamiliar phone call. It wasn't unfamiliar, but he didn't save the number of his ex-wife. What's the matter? He agreed to let Cheng Lingran see her. It should be Cheng Lingran who told him. Cheng Lingsu said, You're so cold. Even if we're divorced, we're still friends who grew up together. You're a big man, you don't have to be so stingy. Well, the spirit cultivation method was placed on the pettiness and couldn't come down. Where are you? Behind you. Jiang Xiu turned around and saw Cheng Lingsu standing at the entrance of the Cheng clan building. She was wearing a fashionable one-piece dress. The lapels of her clothes fluttered slightly, showing the charm of a young girl in the spring breeze. She looked at Jiang Xiu with a charming smile on her face. Women were born liars. The prettier a girl was, the better she was at lying. It seemed that the two of them had already broken up. Instead, it felt like a chance encounter after not seeing each other for many years. However, Cheng Lingsu's smile was indeed charming. In the blink of an eye, another year had passed. She was even prettier. You saw it. Why did you still call? I wanted to see if you would pick it up. Cheng Lingsu walked over. If Jiang Xiu didn't pick up the call, she wouldn't have lowered herself to greet him. You really only listen to my sister. Jiang Xiu didn't answer her. He pointed forward and walked away. The two of them walked to the riverbank across the street. Su Su rushed ahead of him and ran along the beach all the way to the riverbank. Her dress was red. Her long black hair and snow-white skin complemented each other, reflecting a beauty that didn't belong to the mortal world. The river water splashed at her feet and then retreated. She turned around. When did the conflict between us start? When you transferred schools. Was it because I asked you to pretend that you didn't know me in school? Do you think I hurt you? Jiang Xiu said. You can say that. Regarding this matter, Jiang Xiu in his previous life was very sad. From then on, he began to feel inferior and walked with his head down in school. Cheng Lingsu said, but I've never looked down on our relationship. Because of our relationship, I've never had a boyfriend. Yi Wenchen chased me for 3 years, but I never agreed. Even my relationship with young Master Song was forced by you. I have my bottom line. Jiang Xiu's gaze fell on the fine sand at his feet. If it wasn't for the memories of his previous life, Cheng Lingsu really didn't have any major problems. Everything that Jiang Xiu didn't accept her was because of the hatred left in his heart in his previous life. I admit I want to date more outstanding and handsome boys. Who isn't like that in their youth? Don't you also like beautiful girls? If I had a pig's head, would you look at me? Jiang Xiu didn't care about this at all, but he couldn't explain it to Cheng Lingsu. He didn't want to explain it either. He said, it's all in the past. Maybe it's just like what my mom said. If we really calculate it, I should owe you more. He was the one who planned the divorce, and he achieved his goal. Now that he was in a relationship with Cheng Lingran, and Cheng Lingran cared a lot about Cheng Lingsu, he had to appease her. So, Jiang Xiu said, make your request, but don't bring up those stupid questions. Cheng Lingsu's eyes flashed with a trace of sadness. She pursed her lips, turned around, picked up a small stone, and threw it into the sea. She had already said so much. The only thing left was to ask for his forgiveness. Why? We've been a couple since we were young. Jiang Xiu said. Because you despise the poor and love the rich. You're too vain. Cheng Lingsu felt as if her heart had been whipped. She suddenly turned around with anger on her face. So what? In this world, who doesn't want to live a good life? Who isn't vain? Who isn't like that? Jiang Xiu retorted. Your sister isn't like that. My sister? Cheng Lingsu's face turned red. She said angrily, my sister has always been a perfect goddess in your heart, but how much do you know about her? She doesn't despise the poor and love the rich. She's not greedy for vanity. That's because she's not tempted enough. She's greedier than anyone else. Her heart is bigger than anyone else's. Jiang Xiu frowned. What are you talking about? She's your sister. Cheng Lingsu turned her head and didn't say anything. Make a request. Cheng Lingsu said. Okay, I won't mention that stupid thing. Cheng Lingsu, I'm not that cheap. You want to make a request, right? Then teach me your throwing knives. What? Cheng Lingsu raised a contemptuous smile. What? You don't dare? That's what you rely on to run rampant in the world. Are you afraid that one day I'll surpass you if you teach me? The path of a knife cultivator was not that simple. Jiang Luoxia's strength was not only because of his cultivation method, but also because of the longevity rune stone. Okay, I'll teach you. The knife technique will repay your kindness for saving my life. From now on, we're even. In the future, there will be no connection between you and me. Cheng Lingsu opened her beautiful eyes in surprise. You're really willing to teach me? Chapter 449. Saber cultivation wasn't taught by Tianqing School, and he wasn't restricted by Tianqing School's rules. Of course, he could teach it, and it could be considered breaking off his relationship with Cheng Lingsu. No matter what, Cheng Lingsu saved him and his mother, but Cheng Lingsu later killed his parents. However, since nothing happened in this life, this saber technique could be considered as repayment for saving his life. Of course. Jiang Xiu's reply was very resolute, but he was still somewhat angry in his heart. This saber technique was nothing to Jiang Xiu. In fact, it could only be considered ordinary in the immortal martial continent, far from being at the peak. However, Cheng Lingsu didn't know that. She believed that this saber technique was Jiang Xiu's greatest asset to survive. If it was stolen by others, then he might not be the invincible Mr. Jiang under the heavens. Cheng Lingsu said, "Okay, then I hope you'll keep your word." Of course. Everyone knew that Mr. Jiang was a man of his word, except for the occasional shameless act. However, Cheng Lingsu believed him. Although Jiang Xiu was a bastard and arrogant to the extreme, he still kept his word. She said, "I heard that you don't have any girls by your side. Why don't you find one?" This was also one of the reasons why Cheng Lingsu turned back to look for Jiang Xiu. Such a big guy, no matter what, would need a woman, but Jiang Xiu didn't. Girls, especially beautiful girls, were always full of self-confidence. She thought that Jiang Xiu still couldn't let go of her in his heart, and only broke up with her because she made him lose face, lost his dignity, and was seen as a snobbish woman. Actually, he still liked her in his heart. Jiang Xiu said, "Who said I don't?" Cheng Lingsu widened her eyes and said, "Auntie said so. Don't tell me, you have a girlfriend?" "Of course I do." Cheng Lingsu's eyes revealed an imperceptible sense of loss, and her tone inevitably became indifferent. She squeezed out a smile and said, "Is that so? I thought you didn't. Can you tell me who it is?" Jiang Xiu said, "Why bother? We've already separated. We did break up, but we were still friends for so many years. We grew up together. There's no need to know." Jiang Xiu said, "When do you want the blade technique?" Cheng Lingsu said, "As soon as possible." Feeling Jiang Xiu's indifference to her, Cheng Lingsu was a little dispirited. She felt a faint pain in her heart and wanted to cry. She had been doted on since she was a child, which made her somewhat unable to bear the setbacks on the road of love. "Come with me," Cheng Lingsu said. "Not today, I still have something to do." Jiang Xiu had already returned and stopped walking. He felt strange. Was there anything more important in this world than getting the blade technique? But since she said so, Jiang Xiu let her be. He nodded and turned to leave. "Do you want me to give you a ride?" Jiang Xiu shook his head. He took out his phone and called the driver. The car was parked at the end of the road and soon came. The driver was a disciple of the Tang family. This was not a treatment that ordinary people could receive. Sitting in the car, Jiang Xiu asked, "Is there a person called Su Qingwen in Jiang City?" The driver replied, "Yes, the Su family is doing well in Jiang City now. They are also in the real estate business. Mr. Jiang, do you want to deal with them?" "Yes," informed Tang Wenchong. "Don't leave a single one alive." "Yes." Jiang Xiu had no interest in talking nonsense with these clowns, especially when these clowns dared to touch the people around her. Although Cheng Lingran had her amulet and would be fine, the other party's intentions were already unforgivable to Jiang Xiu. And that man and woman were doing the business of pimping. They were even more disgusting than the initiator. At this moment, in the Su family building not far from the CBD of Jiang City, a man in his 30s was lying on the sofa with a cigar in his mouth. He was enjoying the spicy taste of the cigar. "Is your medicine not working? I saw Cheng Lingran drink it a few times, but she didn't have any reaction at all. She was conscious and able to deal with it easily." "Definitely not. My medicine must be effective. I've already tried it. There's no problem 100%. That's strange. Is it because Cheng Lingran has a special constitution that makes her immune to medicine?" Opposite him was a skinny man in a white suit. "Mr. Su, why do you have to play this game with her? Just be tough." Su Qingwen said, "I can't do this openly. She's not an ordinary person. She's Jiang Luoxia's ex-sister-in-law. Anyway, settle this for me. I'll ask Cheng Lingran out tonight. The Cheng clan can't get the land, so they want to get a second-hand land. Who's a fool now? The land price is going to rise." Thinking of that peerless beauty, Su Qingwen's body heated up. He picked up his phone and called Cheng Lingran. "Mr. Cheng, I have a gathering here today. All the big shots in the real estate industry are coming. I'm only missing a beauty like you." Cheng Lingran said, "Is that so? It's a pity that I have something to do tonight." "Can't come?" Su Qingwen was stunned. Ever since he agreed to transfer a second-hand land to Cheng Lingran, he could come out whenever he wanted. Mr. Chung, this is a big deal. Don't you want your land anymore? Chung Lingran could see Su Qingwen's intentions, but she still had a trace of hope in her heart. The Chung clan needed the project too much right now. No need. What? Chung Lingran said. I don't need it anymore. If the Chung clan wants the land, we'll bid for it openly. You don't have to worry about it anymore. After saying that, she hung up. Damn it. Su Qingwen cursed fiercely after the call was hung up. What's wrong? That bitch didn't give me face and refused to come. Su Qingwen was furious. Is it because you've been hanging on her for too long? She knows that you won't transfer the land to her. At this moment, the door was pushed open and Tang Wenchong walked in. Su Qingwen saw him and his expression changed drastically. He was overjoyed. Young Master Tang, what brings you here? The Tang family was definitely the number one in Jiangcheng. Tang Wenchong was now one of the top young masters in Jiangnan, and had started to take over the family business. What wind? Tang Wenchong shook his head indifferently. How dare you be disrespectful to Mr. Zhang's sister-in-law? Behind him, two people wearing green masks with fangs appeared. Kill. Su Qingwen was scared out of his wits. He shouted, No, I didn't do it on purpose. Blood splattered on the floor-to-ceiling window. Take the Su family's assets as compensation to Mr. Chung. After returning home, Jiang Xiu glanced at the Yi family's villa. Yi Bing still hadn't returned. Jiang Xiu entered his secret room. He had delayed this matter for a few days. He sat cross-legged in the secret room. His divine telekinesis was clear. His consciousness left his body and entered the Taishu realm again. Jiang Xiu had become an earth god. His divine telekinesis was extremely powerful. It was as easy as walking to the first 3 levels. He went straight up and passed through the obstacles. He reached the top of the 3rd heaven. There was light shining down on the road. From Jiang Xiu's perspective, he could see a tree. It was a tree that could be seen everywhere. However, it was not ordinary at all. It gave people a mysterious feeling. There was a cow eating grass with its head lowered under the tree. Jiang Xiu abruptly rushed upwards. He felt a strong and unparalleled rebounding force crushing down on him, directly crushing him. He gritted his teeth and abruptly rushed upwards again. Boom. The cow that was eating grass was stunned for a moment because the ground under its feet shook. Perhaps it felt something strange, so it lowered its head to look. Jiang Xiu saw a pair of big cow eyes. It felt like someone was sneaking in from the outside. Boom. Jiang Xiu bumped into the bull again. This time, the bull really felt it. It jumped away in fright. It even let out a snort from its nose. The ground suddenly moved. Anyone would be shocked. Our brother cow had been tricked. It was eating grass happily. Now, it was so scared that it didn't dare to eat anymore. Who would be responsible if it starved to death? Little did they know that an outsider was about to climb up from the ground. Bang! There was a bump on the ground. The cow stared at it. It suddenly jumped over and stomped on the bump. Evildoer, don't try to scare me. Our pitiful Xianxian felt an unparalleled heavenly might pressing down on him. The power of the realm force was so strong that it caused him to fall straight down from the sky. This angered Jiang Xiu even more. He chanted an incantation and suddenly rushed up. There was a boom. He directly knocked away the light above his head. He saw darkness in front of him. Accompanied by the sound of a cow, Brother Cow fell from above. It pressed down on Jiang Xiu's divine telekinesis all the way down. Clang! Brother Cow appeared in Jiang Xiu's secret chamber. It pressed down heavily on Jiang Xiu's body. Chapter 450. Falling from the 4th layer of heaven with the power of the realm. One could imagine the power. Even though Xiu Shen had a divine body, he was still crushed half to death. He almost couldn't breathe. The cow was so scared that it was dancing with joy. Its mouth kept making mooing sounds. Quick, get down. Spiritual cultivation was also shocked. She tried to push the strange bull down, but found that the bull had the power of the realm, and could not be moved. Moo. The bull rolled down from Jiang Xiu's body and widened its eyes. It was like a young girl who was suddenly done with. It was not good for the bull. Who are you? The bull looked at Jiang Xiu in a daze and shook its head. What kind of world are you in? How did you end up in my world? The bull was still in a daze and then shook its head. Jiang Xiu felt strange. To be able to be in the fourth heaven of the great void. That place could almost be considered as the immortal world. The bulls in the immortal world could not speak. Even if many animals on earth had awakened, the strange beasts could also speak. This bull could not be worse than the strange beasts on earth. It was at least a bull demon god. Even if it could not transform, it should be able to speak. I'm asking you a question. Can you answer me? The bull still shook its head. Its eyes were still looking around. In terms of body shape, it was exactly the same as the bulls on earth. Jiang Xiu did not pay attention to it anymore. He immediately got rid of all distracting thoughts and wanted to enter the great void realm with his divine consciousness. Unfortunately, there was still no way to enter. After all this time, he finally reached the earth god level, but in the end, he got himself a bull? He furrowed his brows, and the muscles on his face twitched slightly. For others, it was like a meat pie falling from the sky onto their heads, but for Jiang Xiu, it was like a cow falling from the sky onto his head. He couldn't even ascend to the fourth heavenly layer. He could feel that it would be a whole new world, a world where all kinds of possibilities existed. It might even be a world like the immortal Martial Continent. How beautiful, how perfect, a paradise for cultivation. But it was destroyed by this cow just like that. The world was so big. Why did he have to meet this cow? Sensing Jiang Xiu's growing murderous aura, the bull retreated step by step. However, the secret room was not big to begin with. Although the bull was small, like a calf, it was still too big. It only took a few steps to reach the corner. Then he raised his two front hooves. Although she couldn't speak, her eyes were extremely lively. There was panic, hesitation, and a trace of clarity. She was very human-like. Her intelligence should not be low. Do you know how to get back? The bull still shook its head. This gave Jiang Xiu a headache. He thought to himself, I can't possibly kill and eat it, right? After all, it's a cow that fell from the fourth level of heaven. Eating it would be a waste. This was the price he had to pay to enter the fourth level of heaven. Jiang Xiu would rather use his entire worth to exchange for the chance to enter the fourth level of heaven again. Jiang Xiu ran to the courtyard and set up a large array. Then, he ran back to the house and led the bull out. When the bull appeared outside the house, it saw a different world. Its pair of adorable bull eyes suddenly lit up, revealing a trace of joy. Then, like an old monk in meditation, it became adorable again. It was locked in the large array by Jiang Xiu. With a wave of Jiang Xiu's hand, a silver light sprinkled down. The large array was then concealed within. Now that no one could see the bull, it couldn't walk out of the large array. Ding dong. The doorbell rang outside the house. Cheng Lingran wouldn't take the initiative to come here. Since both parents had the key, it should be Su Su. He came to the door and opened it. He couldn't help but smile. Why is it you? When did you come back? At this moment, the sky was already filled with stars and the moon was hanging in the sky. Yi Bing put her hands behind her back and smiled sweetly. Why, am I not welcome? She tilted her head and looked inside, as if to see if there was anyone in Jiang Xiu's house. More importantly, she wanted to see if there was a woman. Of course you are welcome. Yi Bing lightly jumped into Jiang Xiu's house. She took off her shoes and changed into slippers. She looked around. Rich, really rich. Inhumane. Jiang Xiu said. You know that I'm inhumane, yet you still dare to come? Aren't you afraid that my beast nature will act up? Yi Bing's pretty face couldn't help but change. She looked at Jiang Xiu with vigilance and stopped in her tracks. Jiang Xiu was depressed. Was his character that bad? Yi Bing suddenly giggled. Her teeth were very white, and her eyes were very moving. It had to be said that her smile was very attractive. Look, you're a beast now. You don't even know if you can control your beast nature. Jiang Xiu said. Then don't go back tonight. Let's see if I can control it. Yi Bing's beautiful eyes widened. You're really shameless. As she said this, she walked inside. When a guest came, Jiang Xiu had to pour some tea. He never did this kind of thing. However, a beautiful woman, especially a demon god beauty, was an exception. This woman was like a mystery. Jiang Xiu entered the kitchen while Yi Bing went to the backyard. Jiang Xiu didn't think much of it. It was normal to visit a home. However, when he was making tea, he suddenly thought of something. Yi Bing wasn't an ordinary girl. She was a demon god. Would she see that cow? His eyes carried a cold light. He looked through the layers of walls and saw that Yi Bing was actually walking straight towards the cow. The cow's gaze also swept towards her. Yi Bing's gaze swept over the array. She seemed to be admiring the scenery in the yard. However, Jiang Xiu's eyes were very sharp. He could feel that Yi Bing's gaze met the cow's and even paused. He guessed that she must have seen it. However, the problem was that it wasn't strange that Yi Bing didn't see the cow. However, the cow saw her but she pretended not to see it. This was a bit thought-provoking. Moreover, Yi Bing's sudden visit to the back garden seemed more like she was here for the cow than for him. Drink tea. When Jiang Xiu finished making tea and brought it out, Yi Bing had already returned from the backyard. Her pair of beautiful eyes curiously looked at Jiang Xiu's house. At that time, this house seemed to be the best here. My father wanted to buy it, but he couldn't. In the end it fell into your hands. Oh right, I haven't seen your father for many years. Is he doing well? Yi Bing took the teacup and said, same as always. Just as she was about to drink, she glanced at Jiang Xiu with her beautiful eyes and asked, there shouldn't be anything in there that shouldn't be, right? I have to be careful of you. Jiang Xiu said, you reminded me. Yi Bing said, are you that stupid? You always need others to remind you. When will you do what you promised me last time? What is it? Yi Bing immediately picked up the teacup and said, how could you forget such a big thing? Didn't you promise me last time that you would arrange for me to enter Jiangnan University? Jiang Xiu just remembered this. Hey, this is a small matter. I will ask someone to arrange it. But if you go to Hangzhou, we will have less time to see each other. Yi Bing said. Who wants to see you? You are full of nonsense. You don't know how to be kind to me. I hate you when I see you. Jiang Xiu sat beside her and shamelessly put his big hands on her thighs. Just put it, but he actually rubbed it. Yi Bing immediately grabbed his mischievous hand. Please put away your beast nature. Jiang Xiu stared at her eyes, which were like autumn water. Her heart suddenly beat violently. I don't want to play with you. If you continue like this, I will really leave. Leave? Didn't you say that you would watch me here at night and see if this beast would go berserk? Yi Bing whispered. Do you still need to watch me? That's for sure. Jiang Xiu looked at her blushing face and couldn't help but want to kiss her. Yi Bing nervously grasped his big hands. Time seemed to return to the phone booth in the thunderstorm after the college entrance examination. In the narrow space, they breathed in each other's scent and their youthful and restless hearts beat. Let me ask you, why did you refuse to pick me up in high school? Yi Bing's eyes became charming and affectionate. Jiang Xiu said. You should have heard that I was engaged. Is that the reason? Jiang Xiu nodded. Yi Bing didn't seem to believe it. Do you still like her now? Of course not. Yi Bing lowered her head shyly. Do you like me? Chapter 451. I like it very much. Jiang Xiu put his fingers into her soft hair and made circles. Her hair was black and soft, as smooth as silk. Yi Bing reached out and pressed Jiang Xiu's chest, but seeing his impatient look, she couldn't help but smile. You men are all liars. You don't have good intentions. Jiang Xiu thought to himself, you women are the liars. Why did I appear in my youth? If I traveled through time and space to return to the past, I should have appeared in the place where I had been before, not in Yi Bing's house. Moreover, both of them were very clean. This was too strange. Moreover, Jiang Xiu couldn't remember what had happened before he came back here. Some part of his memory was missing. What was even stranger was that Yi Bing was just an ordinary student in her previous life. Later on, her fate was good. But in this life, she became a snake demon god. In this regard, Jiang Xiu had to be careful. In this world, Jiang Xiu was the one and only supreme earth god. However, if that cow could come to this world, the strong people from other worlds could naturally come too. Don't be like this. Yi Bing resisted like a little sheep. Stop harassing me. Otherwise I'll go home. Yi Bing felt that if she continued like this, it would be very dangerous. She had already sounded the red alarm. Oh, but I think you like it when I harass you. You're so annoying. Of course, Yi Bing didn't resist in her heart. She even liked this feeling. However, rationality told her that she had to be reserved. The easier it was to get, the less she would cherish it. I really want to go home. She felt that Jiang Xiu's hand was getting more and more loose. She was panting and panting. She couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. She had zero experience in this area, and Jiang Xiu was already a divorcee. She felt more and more at a loss. Thinking of the phone booth after the rain, Jiang Xiu didn't respond at all. She was so angry that she bit Jiang Xiu's shoulder. Ah! She couldn't help but scream. Yi Bing started crying and scolding Jiang Xiu. You're a bully. Jiang Xiu took off his clothes and pointed at the teeth marks on his shoulder. Girl, can't we be reasonable? Who's bullying who? Looking at his strong and masculine body, Yi Bing said, You're a bully. After saying that, she became even more nervous and didn't know what to do. This fellow is really a hooligan. Can't you just open your shoulders a little and see clearly? Why do you have to take off your clothes? Exhibitionist, do you think I don't know what you're thinking? She hurriedly stood up and ran outside. Jiang Xiu reached out to grab her, but Yi Bing dodged and made a funny face at her. It was so funny that it melted my spiritual cultivation heart. Then, she ran out of the door. You're a bad guy. Watching her leave, he couldn't help but exclaim. This girl's figure was really smooth, and the smell on her body was really good. Didn't they say that dragons and snakes were lascivious? Why was she so conservative? It was rare that she was able to restrain her beastly nature, but my beastly nature was unleashed. Seeing that she had only taken a sip of tea, there was a clear lipstick mark on the edge of the teacup. It seemed that she had dressed up carefully before coming here. He picked up the teacup and took a sip. Such delicious tea, and you're leaving without drinking it. It's a waste. Then he got up and went to the backyard. He wanted to see the cow, but when he arrived, his eyes couldn't help but widen. He saw that half of the cow's hoof was outside the array. When it noticed Jiang Xiu's arrival, it tiptoed back. Jiang Xiu couldn't help but be stunned. This array had the power of confinement. Not to mention a cow, even the god of thunder would have to spend a lot of effort to get out after he finished setting it up. Its hoof could step in at will. Jiang Xiu asked, Can you get out of the array? The cow hurriedly shook its head, its eyes blank, as if it didn't do anything. Don't bully an honest person. Still not admitting it? It's fine if you say that you can't get out, but what's the meaning of wearing a big red flower on your head? In the flower bed behind the courtyard, there were big morning glory flowers. It happened to be spring now, the season of blooming. There were many flowers blooming, very bright, and indeed very beautiful. However, only the stem of the biggest flower was left. The flower had been plucked away, and this cow had a big red flower on its head. It really made people not know whether to laugh or cry. What's with the flower on your head? The cow's face suddenly changed. It raised its eyelids and looked up. It was speechless. It had exposed itself, but it didn't have any intention of taking the flower. Everyone loves beauty, even if it's a cow. I understand. Jiang Xiu walked into the courtyard with great interest. Ordinary men are not so vain, nor are they so perverted. You should be a female cow, right? As he spoke, he lowered his head to look down, trying to confirm his judgment. The cow hurriedly squatted down and mooed angrily, protesting against Jiang Xiu's rude behavior. Tell me, what's your background? As soon as Jiang Xiu asked this question, the bull began to observe its surroundings. It was like an old monk in meditation. No one could affect it. Then you can stay here. Jiang Xiu's forehead flashed, and his figure flickered in the air. Every time he slashed out, the saber light would flash and disappear. In the blink of an eye, he had already slashed out dozens of times, forming a saber net outside the array. Now, if the bull wanted to leave the array, it would have to endure the attack of the saber chi. Even if this cow could break his array, he didn't believe that it could withstand his knife. Moo. Jiang Xiu turned around. Since this cow from the fourth layer of heaven could fall here, did it have something to do with Earth? As for the legends of cows, he flipped through the books Susu bought for him. One of them was called, I Will Leave Hanggu Pass in the West. Hanggu Pass was an important checkpoint. There, the road was deep in the valley, hundreds of miles from east to west. The walls were steep, and the trees covered the sky. The guard pinched his fingers and calculated. Did I calculate wrongly? There should be a saint entering today. When the sun set, there was a strange phenomenon in the sky. Purple chi came from the east, and an old man in plain robes rode a green cow leisurely. When the guard met the old man face to face, the old man recited a sacred scripture for becoming a saint, the Book of Taoism. When the book continued to recite, the next page was the Book of Taoism. However, the first word suddenly turned into light sand and disappeared. This was only the beginning. Then the second word, the third word, the words disappeared one by one without a trace. This made Jiang Xiu very shocked. After a while, there was not a single word on this page. It was completely blank. When he flipped to the back, it was the same. After a while, the entire Book of Taoism was completely gone. Jiang Xiu had memorized a bit of it before. At least, he could remember the first few sentences. However, he couldn't remember what the first sentence was. This made him feel very strange. He immediately took out his phone and called Cheng Lingran. Rang Ran. Big bad guy, why are you calling me? I almost died because of you today. Take a look. Do you have the Book of Taoism? Jiang Xiu was not in the mood to flirt with Cheng Lingran. He felt that something big was about to happen. Cheng Lingran said, No, I'm not a Taoist. Then do you know how to recite it? Cheng Lingran said, I know a little about the first part. I don't know the latter part. Tao. Well, I can't remember. Wait, I'll use the computer to check. Now that the internet was developed, there was no way to find any information, especially a famous scripture like the Book of Taoism. However, when Cheng Lingran entered the Book of Taoism, the web search showed that there was no result. How can this be? Why can't it be found on the internet? Jiang Xiu's face couldn't help but change. As expected. What's wrong? Jiang Xiu said. Nothing, I'm just curious. However, his brows were tightly knitted together. What kind of place was the fourth heaven? That place might have been before Laozi became a saint, and this bull might be Laozi's green bull. Did it come to this world and cause the loss of the Tao Te Ching? If so, did it mean that this world would return to before the appearance of the Book of Taoism? If so, this world would be even more mysterious. Chapter 452. Under the setting sun, Laozi rode the black ox out of Hanggu Pass and passed down the Tao Te Ching. Now that the Tao Te Ching had disappeared from the world, and the black ox was still a calf, where was Laozi? Cheng Lingran changed the search software, but the results were the same. She even entered the online bookstore to buy the Tao Te Ching, but there were no related books. Everything about the Tao Te Ching had disappeared from the world. How could this be? Cheng Lingran was very surprised. The changes in the world could be understood as a natural reaction. Creatures evolved and had stronger abilities, but the Tao Te Ching had disappeared on the internet, in physical books, and even in people's memories. It didn't exist in this world at all. This was too hard to understand, too inconceivable. She thought of a terrible thing. The intelligence of strange beasts was constantly increasing. Would the loss of the Tao Te Ching be the beginning of the decline of human intelligence? Could it be that the Tao Te Ching is just the beginning, and human books will disappear one by one? Jiang Xiu said. Are you worried that you will become an idiot? Cheng Lingran said. I'm not worried. If I become an idiot, I'll rely on you for the rest of my life. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to slack off. Do you know? I'm not in the mood to work all day today. Jiang Xiu said, Why? Cheng Lingran lowered her voice and said, I miss you. Jiang Xiu couldn't help but feel a little proud in his heart. It was said that what conquered a woman was that. Sure enough, after the hard work during the day, he had already achieved some results. Did you miss me or did you miss me? Cheng Lingran's cheeks heated up. She said softly, both. These words were really a powerful drug. Jiang Xiu's heart was burning. I'll come find you. I can't. I'm at home now. Jiang Xiu said. Then you should go back to the company. Cheng Lingran was quite tempted. Just as she was about to agree, there was a knock on the door. Then Su Su pushed the door open and said, Didn't you hear me? Come down and eat some fruit. Cheng Lingran said into the phone. Oh, okay. Wait a minute. I'll go back to the company to deal with it. Su couldn't help but roll her eyes. Sister, can you give yourself a holiday? Moreover, you can only take on some other people's real estate now. The profit is low, the risk is high, and it's tiring. You might as well change your line. Cheng Lingran hung up the phone and walked downstairs with her sister with a smile. I won't do it again. Su glanced at her sister who was smiling like a flower. She could feel that her sister's mood had improved. So, that fellow's anger has subsided? Probably. Jiang Xiu hung up the phone. He was also in a good mood. Cheng Lingran's meaning before hanging up the phone was very clear. It seemed that his sister was also addicted to it. Of course, things wouldn't be as Cheng Lingran had predicted. The books of human beings would gradually disappear. The only thing that would disappear would be the Tao Te Ching. The reason was that Laozi's green ox had come to this world, and it was still a calf. However, the loss of the Tao Te Ching would definitely have a little impact on human beings. Laozi could become a sage with it, which showed that this book of enlightenment had a far-reaching impact. As for what consequences it would cause, Jiang Xiu didn't know. However, he could foresee the deterioration of human intelligence, especially for ordinary people who hadn't awakened. He closed the book. He planned to go to the Cheng clan to hang out with Cheng Lingran. However, before he left, he remembered that Yi Bing seemed to have her eyes on that ox. This ox was related to the loss of the Tao Te Ching. Thinking of this, Jiang Xiu waved his hand. After entering the Earth God realm, he could use many formations at will. He set up an invisible formation outside. If there were any abnormal fluctuations of spiritual power, Jiang Xiu would be able to find out whether Yi Bing had sneaked into his house when he wasn't around. After leaving the villa area, Jiang Xiu didn't want to ask someone to drive him. He went to the intersection and hailed a taxi to the Cheng clan building. From afar, he saw Cheng Lingran's car turn into the building. Jiang Xiu thought to himself, she's in a hurry. If Cheng Lingran knew that Jiang Xiu thought of her this way, she wouldn't have come even if she was beaten to death. The next day, the sun shone in through the window, leaving a shadow on the snow-white sheets. Cheng Lingran slowly opened her eyes. She was still in Jiang Xiu's arms. Her eyelashes fluttered gently. Her skin was white with a tinge of red. She was so tender that it was almost dripping water. She gently bit her red lips. She had to endure this guy's harassment early in the morning, and he said it was all for the sake of the child. After a long time, Cheng Lingran was finally able to get out of bed. She casually put on Jiang Xiu's clothes and went to the bathroom. Jiang Xiu came to the window. His eyes couldn't help but widen. The river outside the window was filled with thick spiritual energy that couldn't be dispersed. It rippled with the wind. The surrounding high-rise buildings that were more than 10 stories tall were filled with spiritual energy. It seemed like the world had undergone a huge change overnight. Could it be? Jiang Xiu picked up the phone and called Wang Xintong. Before Jiang Xiu could say anything, Wang Xintong said, something big has happened. The earth that was originally divided into two halves by you has undergone a huge change. Another piece of land that is almost the same size as the earth has appeared out of thin air, and is connected to the earth. What? Wang Xintong said. It was taken from the satellite. I'll send the photo to your mobile phone immediately. Cheng Lingran came out of the bathroom at this time. She was wiping her wet hair with a dry towel. Seeing Jiang Xiu holding the mobile phone with a dignified expression, she walked over curiously and asked, "What's the matter?" As she approached, a mesmerizing fragrance blew over. Jiang Xiu liked this smell very much. He was even a little fascinated. Her warm eyes made Jiang Xiu's heart beat faster. The scene in front of him reminded him of the time they spent together in his previous life. A piece of land that appeared out of thin air is connected to the earth. Looking at the photo taken from space, Cheng Lingran's beautiful eyes couldn't help but widen. She said involuntarily, "How could this be?" Not only that, the two hemispheres that were split by the saber seemed to have undergone a more obvious change. Looking at the photo, Jiang Xiu felt a sense of déjà vu in his mind. This was not the arrival of a different world, because the other world had basically merged with this world except for the land of China. It would not cause such a huge change all of a sudden. It would take hundreds or thousands of years to evolve. The situation in front of him was obviously caused by an unexpected event. He guessed that this event was very likely to be related to the arrival of his calf. What does this look like? It looks very familiar. Do you think it looks familiar? Cheng Lingran also nodded. What is this? Cheng Lingran stretched out her slender finger and circled the empty space where the 3 continents were connected. This part is empty. There should be another one here. 4. Jiang Xiu's heart moved. He pointed to the human world that he had divided and said, Nanjian Department Continent. He pointed to the part that had turned into the demon world. A Paragodania continent. The extra part might be the Dongsheng Divine Continent. Cheng Lingran said in confusion. Did you give them the names? They sound pretty good. Jiang Xiu shook his head and said, I didn't give them the names. These are his names. Dongsheng Divine Continent, Nanjian Department Continent, a Paragodania Continent, North Continent. Cheng Lingran said, Is the extra place inhabited? Jiang Xiu sighed. This was still unclear, but he said, It might not be a human. It could be a god, or an immortal, or a spirit, or a demon. Will we be in trouble? Jiang Xiu shook his head, but he knew that a new world was unavoidable. It would be a primitive world. A world that didn't even have the Tao Te Ching. The sound of horns kept coming from outside. The people working in the CBD had started to go to work. No matter how the outside world changed, they still had to earn money to eat and pay off their loans. Cheng Lingran changed her clothes and fiddled with her hair in front of the mirror. Hurry up and leave. It won't be good if someone sees you. There's a breakfast shop 100 meters to the right at the entrance of the Cheng clan building. The food is not bad. You can try it. Today, I'm going to participate in a bidding meeting. I've prepared the bidding document for a long time. Can I win? Jiang Xiu said. You should be able to. Cheng Lingran rolled her eyes at him and said, If you don't win, don't think about getting on my bed at night. Go wherever you want to go. I'll definitely win. Cheng Lingran burst out laughing. She leaned in front of Jiang Xiu and intimately reached out to pinch his high nose. I'm going to work. Chapter 453. Jiang Xiu followed Cheng Lingran's recommendation and went to the breakfast restaurant. It was a small shop that the couple ran themselves, but the food tasted really good. It was obvious that they put a lot of effort into making the food. After breakfast, Jiang Xiu went home. When he got home, there was a courier at the door. To be precise, it was a postman. This profession had almost disappeared. He told Jiang Xiu, Are you Mr. Jiang Xiu? There's a letter for you here. Letter? The envelope was very old, and the words on it were written with a brush. The handwriting was very neat. It was obvious that Changnian had used a brush to write. He had a good foundation in calligraphy. Where did you send it from? The postman shook his head. We don't know. Our postal department rarely sends letters anymore. I hope you can tell your friend that we can use a more modern way of writing letters. Please sign your name here. After Jiang Xiu returned home with the letter, he first went to the backyard to take a look. Immediately he frowned. There was an abnormal energy fluctuation in the big array outside the backyard, indicating that someone had broken in. Jiang Xiu couldn't think of anyone else except Yi Bing. However, what made him feel a little relieved was that the calf was still there, lying on the ground and sleeping. Yi Bing might have retreated after seeing the sword array, or it might have been for other reasons. As long as the calf was still there, it was fine. This calf was extremely important now. Tearing open the envelope, Jiang Xiu pulled out a piece of paper. He opened it and thought that he had seen wrongly. There was not a single word on it. It was blank. He used his eye technique, but still there was not a single word. Jiang Xiu was puzzled. Why would someone send him a blank piece of paper? What was the meaning of this? With a thought, a ball of flame appeared. In an instant, the paper turned to ashes and drifted in the air. Trying to be mysterious? Jiang Xiu went upstairs to the balcony and looked at Yi Bing's house. Could it be this little girl's trick? But what did she mean by sending him a blank piece of paper? Perhaps Jiang Xiu was too confident in his eye technique, But he didn't notice that the drifting ashes emitted a few strands of black light sand in the air before they were blown away by the wind. At around 10 o'clock, Cheng Lingsu came to Jiang Xiu's house. She was here to get the sword manual. Jiang Xiu did not have time to write one for her last night. Wait here for a while. About 20 minutes. Okay. After Jiang Xiu left, Cheng Lingsu looked around the house. Although it had changed hands once, it did not change much. Walking into the study, the bookshelves were full of books. These books were bought by her to please Jiang Xiu. At first, she was unwilling, but later, she was willing to buy a whole house full of books. She touched the books with her slender fingers. She was reluctant to part with them. She asked herself if she was reluctant to part with this magnificent villa, or her noble status as Jiang Luoxia's wife. She felt that it was neither. She was even more reluctant to part with Jiang Xiu. This strong feeling surprised even herself. Maybe it was best to lose it. But no matter how reluctant she was, she would never wag her tail and beg Jiang Luoxia. Cheng Lingsu's arrogant heart would never accept it. She would never do it. She randomly picked a book and began to read. Su Su was a top student in school, but now she was all focused on cultivation. Her studies were basically abandoned. In addition, Jiang Xiu's books were all about miracles. She lost interest after a few flips. Well, why is there a letter? Su Su curiously picked it up. Except for important documents such as contracts and lawyers' letters, private letters were all sent through the internet. People still use paper letters in this day and age. But it was empty. She put it in the book. It's finished. Take it out. Writing a sword manual was just a piece of cake for Jiang Xiu. He finished it quickly. Cheng Lingsu reached out and took it. After thinking for a while, she said, "Thank you." Jiang Xiu did not say anything. He thought it would be good to send Cheng Lingsu away. "You then I'll go." Jiang Xiu nodded. Cheng Lingsu left. Whenever Jiang Xiu showed that he wanted her to stay for a while, she would pretend to stay. But Jiang Xiu did not answer or speak. The awkward situation was tantamount to asking her to leave. Walking out of the house, Cheng Lingsu looked back. "Since you think I'm a greedy person, then I'll be a greedy person. Jiang Xiu, sooner or later, you will beg me. Let's see if I can help you then." Sitting in the car, Cheng Lingsu held back her tears. "Well, where's the envelope?" Jiang Xiu remembered that Cheng Lingsu took away the sword manual and a book. The envelope seemed to be in it. Jiang Xiu did not notice it, and neither did Cheng Lingsu. Originally, Jiang Xiu thought that this matter was over, but what he didn't expect was that the next morning, the postman delivered the same letter. The letter only had Jiang Xiu's name written on it, and the letter inside was still a blank piece of paper. This was strange. This kind of mysterious letter was either threatening or extorting. But in today's world, who dared to threaten or blackmail Mr. Jiang? Not to mention, there was not a single word on the paper. Jiang Xiu put it aside and ignored it. He waited for the next day. The next day, the same letter was not delivered. This made Jiang Xiu take out the letter again and study it. What's going on? He specifically asked the post office to investigate this matter. No one sent a letter. This letter seemed to have appeared out of thin air. He remembered that Jiang Xiu had burned the letter yesterday, so he sent another one. So he took out the letter again and burned it. Sure enough, Jiang Xiu guessed right. The next day after he burned the letter, the other party sent him another letter. "Does he want me to write something?" Jiang Xiu wrote 3 words on it. "Who are you?" After he wrote it, he could not send it. Jiang Xiu burned the paper again. And then there was no more. The next day, another letter was sent. This kind of situation basically proved that Jiang Xiu's approach was wrong. He suddenly remembered something. There was a legend in the immortal martial continent. There was a strong person who cultivated the Great Destiny technique out of the 3,000 Great Ways. This Great Way was ranked first in the general outline of Great Ways. If he communicated with people tens of millions of miles away, he also communicated with them through letters. And the so-called funeral oration was also a type of written language that could be used to communicate across realms. Although Jiang Xiu did not really believe that there would be an existence in this world that could grasp the Great Destiny technique, he still wanted to try his luck. He wrote his birth characters on the letter. But there was still no result. But on that very night, Jiang Xiu entered a dream. A person who would not dream even once in a few decades had entered a dream. In a daze, he heard someone calling out to him, "Jiang Xiu, Jiang Xiu." Jiang Xiu opened his eyes and discovered that he was above the clouds in the sky. In the distant horizon, an old man dressed in black stood there, his hair tied up in a bun. Jiang Xiu. His expression was calm and there was a hint of peace about him, making people feel comfortable looking at him. He was very similar to the immortal cultivators of the immortal martial continent, but he lacked the killing intent and was more carefree. "You are." Jiang Xiu was in a daze. He didn't know if he was awake or asleep. He smiled and said, "I am the divine official of the ancestral court, Shintarenjia." Divine official of the ancestral court? Jiang Xiu was shocked and immediately woke up. He thought of the letter and exclaimed in his heart. It was actually the great destiny technique. Through his fate, he avoided the realm power and entered his dream. "Why are you looking for me?" Shintarenjia pointed to the distant horizon where the endless palaces were and said, "That is the ancestral court, and the world you are in is the world notified by the ancestral court. You are the earth god of that world, and the ancestral court wants to confer you the title of divine official. Are you willing?" Jiang Xiu said, "Did you send that letter?" Shintarenjia shook his head and said, "Of course not. It was sent by the divine emperor of the ancestral court." Jiang Xiu was shocked. He could no longer guess what kind of existence the divine emperor of the ancestral court was. He was above the heavenly god realm, and had even grasped the great destiny technique. Such a person was unparalleled even in the immortal martial continent. The gap between the mortals of Earth and Jiang Xiu was equivalent to the gap between Jiang Xiu and the divine emperor of the ancestral court, or even greater. Such a person was far inferior to Jiang Xiu's strongest friend in the immortal martial continent. "What if I'm not willing?" Shintarenjia said. "Then it's a pity. The ancestral court can only find someone else. However, fellow Taoist Jiang must listen to the divine official's instructions on earth, and not violate the laws of the ancestral court. Otherwise, even though the divine emperor is benevolent, he won't tolerate you." Chapter 454. The heavenly official he met in the Great Void Realm had suppressed Jiang Xiu before, so he didn't have a good impression of the ancestral court. Jiang Xiu knew that he wasn't a good person, but he lived an open and above-board life. He definitely wouldn't suppress emerging geniuses, and would even nurture opponents to motivate himself. Therefore he looked down on that heavenly official, and even had a bad impression of the ancestral court. And the heavenly official in front of him was cultured and refined, without the slightest bit of arrogance. His tone was neither hard nor soft, and he gave people a feeling of elegance. This made Jiang Xiu have a whole new level of respect for him. He looked at Jiang Xiu and smiled. To be able to become the overlord of a world, you naturally have your own pride. But there's always someone better than you. Taoist Jiang, you're just starting out. If it was someone else, they might disdain Shintarenjia's words. However, Jiang Xiu had seen the world. The current him was very far away from the future him. Of course, he knew that he was just an insignificant ant in their eyes. Therefore, Shintarenjia's words were sincere. Moreover, Jiang Xiu needed cultivation resources. Since he was an official, he naturally had a salary. In addition, if he obtained a divine position, his cultivation would definitely increase. Shintarenjia said, "Taoist Jiang, do you still need to consider?" Jiang Xiu shook his head and said, "It's a good time." Shintarenjia seemed to be a little surprised. This was because the gods who grew up here would mostly refuse when they knew nothing about the ancestral court. When they understood, it would be too late for regrets. "You agree?" Jiang Xiu nodded. "It's not simple. Earth is so chaotic. No wonder you killed your way out, and in such a short time." Shintarenjia said, "In that case, I'll announce the divine emperor's decree." Jiang Xiu stood up straight, crossed his arms, and bowed his head to the back of his hands. "Pass down the decree of the ancestral court's divine emperor. Jiang Xiu of Earth will be the rank 7 divine lord of Blazing Sunday." "Thank you, your majesty." Shintarenjia looked at Jiang Xiu, and the smile on his face widened. "Congratulations, Daoist Jiang. From now on we will be officials of the same court, and we can interact more often. This Shinto Renjia was very enthusiastic. Jiang Xiu said, "Of course. It's just that right now, this little god's cultivation is still shallow. Leaving Earth for a trip is quite exhausting. Going to fellow Daoist Shinto's residence might take several years." Shinto Renjia laughed and said, "Daoist Jiang, you still have to come to the ancestral court as soon as possible. A 7th grade heavenly official can raise 300 grass head gods, as well as an earth god level cultivation technique and corresponding cultivation resources. This is greatly beneficial to you." Jiang Xiu was waiting for this sentence. "But I don't know how far the ancestral court is from Earth and how to get there." Shinto Renjia said, "After Daoist Jiang comes out of the dream, you can feel the divine light entering your body. Then you can feel the seat of the ancestral court and summon it yourself." "Thank you for your advice," Shinto Renjia said. "Daoist Jiang, I feel like old friends with you at first sight, so I'll tell you a thing or two. It's said that the Divine Emperor likes you very much and said that you are a promising talent." Jiang Xiu said, "Likes me? Could the Divine Emperor be a girl?" This guy shamelessly thought, could it be that my fate in the future is to become this Divine Emperor's gigolo, just like the ancient empresses who kept a large number of men in captivity? Thinking about it, Jiang Xiu really panicked in his heart. This guy was still obsessed with cleanliness in this aspect. "Daoist Jiang, in so many years, you are the only divine cultivator who has chosen the divine light of destiny when choosing the divine light. Back then, the Divine Emperor chose the divine light of destiny and cultivated the great art of destiny." Jiang Xiu suddenly understood. So that divine light was the divine light of destiny. Destiny had always been the most difficult to grasp. No wonder he didn't discover the use of the divine light for so many years. At the same time, he felt a little ashamed of his dirty thoughts. He actually looked down on the character of a supreme expert. So it was because Jiang Xiu cultivated the same technique as him back then. Maybe it was completely due to this layer of fate. "I see. Thank you for your advice, Daoist Shinto." Shinto Renjia's face was full of smiles, but it was a little strange no matter how one looked at it. It made Jiang Xiu inexplicably have goosebumps all over his body. He couldn't help but suspect that this gay Shinto Renjia had some unspeakable intentions towards him. "Does the Divine Emperor have any taboos?" After asking clearly, he couldn't offend him the next time they met. Taboos. To be honest, an insignificant official like you can't really come into contact with the Divine Emperor. However, I heard that the Divine Emperor likes flowers very much. Jiang Xiu said, "Flowers? No way, the Divine Emperor is really a woman." Shinto Renjia said, "Yes. Then it wouldn't be easy." Jiang Xiu didn't know how to get along with girls. Moreover, if he liked flowers, he couldn't give flowers. Wasn't it normal for a guy to give flowers to a girl? How daring was it to flirt with the Divine Emperor? Moreover, his spiritual cultivation wasn't so cheap as to sell his body. "Alright, if there's nothing else, Daoist Jiang can go back. Come to the ancestral court as soon as possible and collect your resources. That can greatly increase the speed of your cultivation." "Okay." Jiang Xiu slowly woke up from his dream. He sensed the existence of the ancestral court in his heart. It's so far away. With my current speed, it'll take at least half a year. And that's under the condition that everything goes smoothly. Little did he know that Shinto Renjia's estimation of his speed was 2 years, which was 1.5 years faster than expected. Jiang Xiu had Tianqing School's top-notch movement technique. His speed was slow to begin with, so he relied on his movement technique to make do. At the same time, Jiang Xiu felt that his divine Tao light of destiny had risen sharply. This enhancement was enough to trigger a qualitative change. Jiang Xiu had awakened a small threshold of the small destiny technique. This made Jiang Xiu incomparably happy. In the immortal martial continent, the Great Destiny technique was ranked first among the 3,000 Tao techniques. It was only said that someone had cultivated it, but no one had truly seen it. Even those who cultivated related Tao techniques had never seen it. However, he had become the first person. Moreover, this Tao technique had boundless potential. After cultivating it, its power would be even more astonishing. Of course, The people who cultivated such a heaven-defying Tao technique were all unprecedented super geniuses. Luck, strength, and opportunity were all indispensable. Looks like I have to go to the ancestral court as soon as possible and get my resources back. Otherwise, I'll be a heavenly official for nothing. He got up from the bed and walked to the window to look at the courtyard outside. The calf was also lying on the ground and snoring. Jiang Xiu was deep in thought. These days, the world had changed greatly. Awakened people in China kept appearing like bamboo shoots after a rain. However, because there were so many of them, the appearance of divine discoverers was not so surprising. In the past, if a divine discoverer appeared in a family, the entire family would fly. But now the changes seem to be small. If a divine discoverer had poor aptitude, it would be useless. However, the extra land had already been explored by people here. That place was different from Earth. It was all natural. Planes could fly over, cars could not drive over, and satellites could not detect it. They could only rely on their own 2 feet to walk over. The specific news had not been sent back yet. Jiang Xiu was also full of curiosity about that place. If it were not for the letter and the calf at home, he might not be able to bear to go there. I should bring this calf with me. I rode a young man out of Hanggu Pass. Today, I, Jiang Xiu, rode a green calf to the east of China. The calf shivered inexplicably in its sleep. It shrunk its body and swept its tail around. This cow was quite a clean cow, so it kept the surrounding grass neat and tidy. At this time, Cheng Lingsu was practicing Jiang Xiu's saber technique in the practice room at home. Because she had been practicing for a long time, she specially set up a place at home. She spent most of her time there. In her heart, she had a desire to become stronger than Jiang Xiu. However, after she received the saber technique, her practice was not smooth. The saber was not suitable for women, let alone such a profound saber technique. It was difficult for her to understand at her level. Moreover, there were many words used in cultivation. Cheng Lingsu did not understand what they meant. Even so, her martial arts cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds in just a few days. She had entered the demigod realm and was making great strides towards the immortal realm. However, she knew in her heart that if she wanted to truly catch up to Jiang Xiu, she had to fully understand this saber technique. Then, she would inevitably have to ask Jiang Xiu for advice. Will he still be willing to see me? Cheng Lingsu thought to herself. I don't care. He promised to teach me the saber technique. How can it be counted if I don't learn it? Chapter 455. The flowers and plants in the backyard were in full bloom, and there was even spiritual energy flowing among them. The sunlight shone on them, as if they were covered in a layer of golden light. It was very beautiful. The little green ox was at the side. The flower on her head had already withered and fallen to the ground. She could only look at the flowers that were even more beautiful outside. Especially one of them. It was bright red and stained with dew, emitting a luster. As the light and shadow intertwined, it emitted a moving artistic conception. No wonder many painters loved to draw flowers. Suddenly, a hand reached out and plucked the largest and most beautiful flower. It seems that you like flowers very much. It's said that the divine emperor of the ancestral court also likes flowers very much. The little green ox looked at Jiang Xiu in astonishment. He reached out and took away the withered flower on its head, and inserted the bloody flower in his hand into its head. His actions were affectionate, as if he was a compassionate man inserting a flower for his beloved girl. His eyes were filled with admiration. It's so beautiful. When he said this, even spiritual cultivation felt that it was too fake. How could a cow look good with a big morning glory on its head? However, the little green ox opposite him was as happy as anything. Then the way it looked at Jiang Xiu changed a little. This world did not lack beauty, but it lacked the eyes to discover beauty. I'll pick flowers for you every day. Bring me to your cowhood, boy. Are you willing? The little green ox neither nodded nor shook its head, as if it did not understand what Jiang Xiu was saying. It looked at Jiang Xiu with a blank face, as if it was thinking about something. Cowhood boy. Jiang Xiu reached out and measured his waist. It was the height of a child. There must be someone who cowherd you. Perhaps it was a long time ago, when you were even younger. The little green ox was still at a loss. No wonder there was an idiom that was playing the lute to a cow. This communication was really difficult. It was already at the level of a demon god, but it did not know how to speak or express itself. Then Jiang Xiu took out his phone helplessly and searched for a photo of a cowherd boy. He handed it to the little green ox. The calf shook its head, indicating that it had never seen him before. No. It was strange that the calf had not been spared. He had never been in contact with it when it was young. Immediately, Jiang Xiu remembered that this little green calf did not have a bull's nose ring, which was the Vajra ring that later became a primordial treasure. It seemed that the calf had not met him yet. Then where am I? Jiang Xiu touched the threshold of the lesser fate technique. He knew that fate would not change, at least not when there was a similar point of convergence. Just like just now, Jiang Xiu inexplicably felt that this moment in front of him had happened before. Then he saw Cheng Lingsu appear in his house and ask him some questions about the saber technique. He couldn't help but frown. Even though he was only at the threshold of the lesser fate technique and couldn't sense any earth-shattering events, he could still sense some small things, especially small things related to himself. This matter will affect me? Whatever. Jiang Xiu didn't want to be entangled with Cheng Lingsu anymore. He patted the calf's butt and said, "Let's go. I'll take you out to the Dongsheng Divine Continent. Your destined one might be there." With the lesser fate technique, Jiang Xiu was quite confident that he could find Laozi. In addition, he could cultivate the lesser fate technique, which was ranked first among the 3,000 Dao arts. Once he cultivated it, it would be modest to say that he was invincible. Let's go. The calf didn't refuse. After Jiang Xiu dispersed the formation, it followed Jiang Xiu into the house. The doorbell rang. When he opened the door, Jiang Xiu saw Cheng Lingsu standing outside. She looked at Jiang Xiu nervously and said, "Sorry to disturb you again." Jiang Xiu was delighted. It seemed that he had touched the threshold of the lesser fate technique. Everything that was happening now matched the image in his mind. He said, "Are you here to ask for guidance?" Cheng Lingsu nodded. "There are some things that I don't understand. Can you help me explain?" Moo Moo. The calf, which was originally behind Jiang Xiu, suddenly cried out. It actually pushed Jiang Xiu to the side, so that it could face Cheng Lingsu. Spiritual cultivation cursed in his heart. F*CKU. The calf was so excited when it saw Cheng Lingsu. It was definitely like an animal seeing the school bell. At this moment, Jiang Xiu seriously doubted whether this calf was female. Kikik Jiang Xiu, what an interesting calf. It even put such a beautiful flower on its head. Cheng Lingsu laughed. Her eyes sparkled. Her pretty face was like a flower, and her teeth were snow white. It was truly a breathtaking sight. Mumu. The calf acted cute. Cheng Lingsu stretched out her slender hand and stroked the calf's face. The calf closed its eyes like a dog and had a look of enjoyment. Jiang Xiu had to admit that Cheng Lingsu's appearance was truly beautiful. Even a calf's heart was moved. Moreover, it was a calf whose gender was unclear. Jiang Xiu said unhappily, "Didn't you want to ask about the saber technique? Hurry up, I still have to go out." "Oh." Cheng Lingsu bluntly walked in and greeted the calf. Then she went to the sofa in the living room and sat down. She took out a notebook from her bag. Susu was still very careful. She did not directly bring the saber technique with her. Instead, she copied the parts that she did not understand from the notebook. The calf actually abandoned its temporary master, Jiang Xiu, and sat beside Cheng Lingsu. It was as if Cheng Lingsu was its master. It was a calf that had no position at all. Jiang Xiu was even more unhappy. "Do you want me to tell you this?" "Ah." Cheng Lingsu saw that the coffee table was empty. Since Jiang Xiu wanted to explain, he would definitely be thirsty. She immediately stood up. She was very familiar with this place and went into the kitchen. Jiang Xiu was about to teach the calf a lesson. He wanted to wake her up and not let her beauty go to her head. However, the calf climbed up and walked to the table. It lifted one of its hooves and grabbed the pen on the table. It even sat on the chair with its buttocks. The next scene was shocking. It actually knew how to write. The calf would never forget that grand and unprecedented day. The sky was filled with gods and Buddhas, and when that person appeared, the world was filled with excited hymns. The person wore a tall crown and was dressed in luxurious clothes. It was as if he had walked out from the sun. The light was dazzling. The sky was filled with clouds. There was no place that was not breathtaking. It was said that the person was very fond of flowers. Since then, the calf began to be lost and could not extricate itself. Jiang Xiu curiously came to the table. The calf wrote on it, "What is your relationship with her?" Jiang Xiu was depressed. He had been in contact with the calf for so many days. He even gave the calf flowers for the first time. He did not even say a word to the calf. Now, because of a woman, the calf actually revealed that it knew how to write. Sure enough, whether it was humans or animals, they were all visual animals. Jiang Xiu was in the mood to anger the calf. He said, "Ex-wife." With a loud bang, the calf fell from the chair. It widened its eyes and looked at Jiang Xiu in shock. Its expression was as shocked as it could be. Jiang Xiu's face was cold, but he was very proud in his heart. He understood how the calf felt. It had met a girl it loved and was full of expectations for a beautiful marriage. Suddenly, it was told that she was his ex-wife. All its beautiful dreams were shattered. Fortunately, Jiang Xiu did not give it a double blow. If he said that it was the child's mother, it would definitely collapse. "What's wrong?" Cheng Lingsu heard the noise and ran out. She saw the calf fall to the ground. "Jiang Xiu, what did you do to it? Since you raised it as a pet, you should treat it well. Why did you bully it?" When the calf heard this, it crawled over to Cheng Lingsu, and even crawled beside her feet like a child who had been wronged. Jiang Xiu was dumbfounded. It couldn't sit properly on the stool and fell down. "That's not right. It's a calf. How could you let it sit on the chair?" "I'm not afraid." Jiang Xiu was depressed. If this calf was not his green calf, Jiang Xiu would have killed it to make beef soup. He turned around and sat down on the sofa. "Are you still going to ask? If not, you can leave." Cheng Lingsu just remembered that she had a favor to ask. Although she was on the side of justice, she still had to be humble in front of this big devil. "I'll ask. Of course I'll ask. You're not good. How did you make your master angry?" The calf was confused. Why was this world so strange? Chapter 456. The calf had a dumbfounded look on its face. It kept staring at Cheng Lingsu, its gaze softening. When it saw Cheng Lingsu coming out of the kitchen with a cup of tea, the calf angrily mooed at Jiang Xiu, as though it was protesting against Jiang Xiu for letting Cheng Lingsu do the work of a servant. However, it was ignored by both Jiang Xiu and Cheng Lingsu. In the end, the calf prostrated itself on the ground, feeling dejected. Jiang Xiu had a contemplative look on his face. This calf was not normal. From its various actions, it seemed that it knew Cheng Lingsu. But that didn't make sense. How could it know Cheng Lingsu? A human and a calf had no interactions at all. Originally, it was a calf from thousands of years ago. Now it had turned back into a calf. The sacred text of Taoism had also disappeared. And now Jiang Xiu, who should be a human from thousands of years ago, had appeared here. This place gave Jiang Xiu a feeling of time rewinding. However, it wasn't the whole of time, but individual events. It was hard to say if Cheng Lingsu would know this calf many years later. As he thought of this, he couldn't help but glance at Cheng Lingsu a few more times. The latter also noticed that Jiang Xiu was secretly looking at her. Her beautiful face flushed red, and she felt somewhat happy in her heart. Just like when she was in school, she earnestly asked all kinds of questions and listened to Jiang Xiu's explanation. Jiang Xiu explained in a simple way. Many times, a word could only be understood and not explained clearly. One could only rely on oneself to comprehend it. Other than that, the cultivation atmosphere in the surroundings. After exchanging blows with many people, one could also understand the principles behind it. But one couldn't help but admit that Cheng Lingsu's talent was indeed outstanding. With just a few pointers from Jiang Xiu, she was able to comprehend it. If it was only comprehension, then among all the people Jiang Xiu knew, including those big shots from the immortal martial continent, Cheng Lingsu could be ranked at the top. This girl's future achievements wouldn't be low. The calf was deep in thought. It couldn't get rid of that goddess who loved flowers out of its mind. Could it be that this strange temporary master had taught it a set of saber techniques? It was also very curious what saber technique it was. But not long after, it felt dizzy and drowsy. Unknowingly, it fell asleep. The sun set. Jiang Xiu was still explaining the saber techniques to Lingsu. Jiang Xiu wasn't fond of teaching others, but he had an obsession with cultivation. When he spoke of cultivation, he would become excited and completely forgot that the person was someone he hated. Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu taught seriously, but Lingsu didn't pay as much attention to her learning. Her slender fingers gently twirled the water brush as her beautiful eyes occasionally glanced at Jiang Xiu's marble-like face. Actually, she had long understood what Jiang Xiu was saying, but she couldn't help but ask a few more times because she wanted to see how he would explain it to her. The afterglow of the setting sun cascaded in through the window, casting a shadow on his face. However, his gaze was so focused. Lingsu sadly lowered her head. Back then in the academy, if only she could be together with him, going to school and coming back from school discussing their studies. How good would that be? It was just like when they were young. Sadly, what was missed was missed. Time couldn't go back. Are you clear now? Lingsu nodded and said, So it's already this late. When Lingsu arrived, it was still early in the morning, but now the sun was about to set. As a result, he hadn't eaten anything all day, so he was a bit hungry. Lingsu said, I've delayed you for a day. How about I treat you to a meal as a thank you? Jiang Xiu said, No need. You don't like me that much? Lingsu couldn't help but feel a bit disappointed. She understood that Jiang Xiu's guidance to her wasn't to change his feelings for her, but to get rid of her faster. Jiang Xiu shook his head and said, I've already completely taught you the saber techniques. From now on we're completely even. You don't have to look at me, and I don't have to look at you. Let's go our separate ways. Lingsu pursed her red lips, feeling very wronged. Others don't know, but I know very well that you were the one who planned the divorce. Because of you, Auntie still has prejudice against me. In the past, Auntie treated me better than my mother, but now, she looks at me like she's looking at an enemy. Why do I have to endure such grievances? Why don't I explain? Because I know you hate me. That's because I really only cared about myself in the past, so I'm willing to take the blame for you. However, this is unfair to me. I shouldn't have such a failed marriage for no reason. It doesn't matter if you're a man, but I'm a woman. Jiang Xiu was slightly moved. If he ignored the things that happened in his previous life, and only looked at it from this life, everything he did was indeed unfair to Lingsu. He said, Then what else do you want? He had already given her the saber techniques. In terms of money, the Chung family didn't lack money at all. It was just the two sisters sitting on a net worth of billions. They simply couldn't spend it all. Lingsu said, You can't give me what I want. Jiang Xiu thought highly of himself. He didn't think that there was anything in this world that he couldn't give. He was only worried that Lingsu would be greedy and entangle with him endlessly, which would affect his already fragile relationship with Lingran. Just say it. I'll definitely do it for you. Lingsu shook her head. I want none of this to happen. I didn't marry you and I didn't get divorced. Can you make all of this disappear? Can you? Lingsu's voice was a little hoarse when she said the last sentence. The calf was startled and woke up. However, when he saw Lingsu's eyes filled with tears and she was very emotional, he couldn't help but be stunned again. At this time, Jiang Xiu felt that Lingsu was hurt. Can you? Jiang Xiu really couldn't do anything about this matter. Okay, let's eat. Where are we going to eat? Lingsu stared at Jiang Xiu with tears in her eyes. She threw the notebook in her hand at him and scolded. You bastard! Then she turned around and ran to the door bitterly. She wasn't begging Jiang Xiu, and she didn't want his pity. Jiang Xiu opened his mouth, but he still didn't say anything. The calf got up from the ground and chased after her. When Su Su put on her shoes and ran out, the calf also followed her without hesitation and abandoned Jiang Xiu in a minute. Damn it! Now spiritual cultivation couldn't stay calm no matter how cold he was. This was his green calf. How could he run away with others? He could only chase after them. When he reached the door, he saw Chung Lingsu was also very confused by the calf. Don't follow me. I'm not your master. The calf mooed twice, but it didn't stop. It followed Chung Lingsu all the way to the parking lot. When it saw Chung Lingsu get in the car, it was very anxious. It was too big to get in. Therefore, it ran to the front of the car and then fell to the ground, not letting Chung Lingsu drive the car out. Beep. Chung Lingsu, who was already emotional, pressed the horn hard. The master is annoying. The calf is as annoying as the master. Are you going to go away or not? If you don't go away, I'll run over you. The calf. Moo moo. It mooed twice, but it just lay on the ground and didn't move at all. It seemed that it had made up its mind to follow Su Su even if it died. This scene made Jiang Xiu frown. A very absurd thought flashed through his mind. This calf wanted to follow Chung Lingsu so much. Was Chung Lingsu the father? But the gender didn't match. The father was a man. Chung Lingsu angrily rushed out of the car and said to Jiang Xiu, "Ask your calf to get out of the way." Jiang Xiu said, "Do you know how to recite the Tao Te Ching?" What? Su Su suspected that her ears were damaged. She had just quarreled, and now she hadn't calmed down. How could she recite the Tao Te Ching? I said, "Do you know how to recite the Tao Te Ching?" As long as you can recite one sentence. In this world, there should only be one person who knew how to recite the Tao Te Ching, and that person was the future father. If you recite it, I'll move the calf away. Boring. Su Su thought for a while and opened her mouth as if she wanted to recite it, but the expression on her tear-stained face froze. Dao Dao what? I used to recite it. Didn't the school teach it when we were in school? I can't remember. Jiang Xiu breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was completely his wild guess. However, why did this calf insist on sticking to Chung Lingsu? Was it because she was pretty? Wasn't this a little too unrestrained? Wasn't this a little too crazy? Was a calf so passionate about pursuing the opposite sex? Ask the calf to move away. I can't do anything. This calf didn't listen to its orders. Jiang Xiu, don't bully people. What do you mean by not letting me go? I really can't do anything. It doesn't listen to me. Jiang Xiu still went up to try and said, "Get out of the way. She's going to drive." The calf ignored him. I feel that it may have taken a fancy to you. Chung Lingsu's face turned red. Jiang Xiu, you hate me. I have nothing to say. You don't have to use a calf to humiliate me. Chapter 457. Jiang Xiu thought to himself. Who knows how many people would be willing to be humiliated by this bull? This is the green bull that I'm sitting on. When the day comes that it attains the Tao, how many heavenly deities will have to bow to it? Isn't it good to make it like you? Chung Lingsu said angrily. You can like it all you want. She didn't even want the car. Anyway, this car was old. If it wasn't for Lin Yueling giving it to her back then, she would have changed it long ago. The reason why she kept it was to express her respect and concern for Lin Yueling. She closed the door with a bang and walked away. But the little calf seemed to be determined to follow Chung Lingsu. Seeing that Chung Lingsu was about to leave, it suddenly came to life. It rolled on the ground and got up, following closely behind. Chung Lingsu was really mad. She could only stop and shout at Jiang Xiu. Are you going to do something about it or not? Jiang Xiu said. I can't do anything about it. You get out of the way. The calf shook its head at her. Chung Lingsu was depressed. It was fine to be bullied by Jiang Xiu. After all these years, the problem was that Jiang Xiu, a cow, was bullying her. Jiang Xiu saw that Chung Lingsu was at her wit's end. He went forward and said, You know her? Unexpectedly, this time the calf nodded. Jiang Xiu was very surprised, and Chung Lingsu was even more stunned. You know me? I have nothing to do with you. How do you know me? You must have recognized the wrong person. Chung Lingsu was born in Jiang City. She had never been in contact with fields or cows since she was young. To be honest, this was the first time she had seen a cow in real life. Previously, she had only seen it on TV. She was 100% sure that she had never seen this cow before. Unexpectedly, The calf raised one of its hooves and took the fresh flower from its head. It handed it to Cheng Lingsu. Jiang Xiu's expression changed slightly. Cheng Lingsu was even more stunned. She could really feel the kindness from the calf. Thank you. Her anger subsided a lot. But I can't accept this flower. I really don't know you. You have the wrong person. Jiang Xiu saw this and waved his hand. The pen and paper in the house fell into his hand. He picked up the pen and wrote on the paper. Are you sure you didn't recognize the wrong person? Then who is she? After he finished writing, he handed the pen and paper to the green cow. The green cow took it very humanely. Cheng Lingsu was shocked by this scene. This cow could write. She was curious to see what it wrote. Unexpectedly, the green cow didn't let her give it to him. It blocked the paper and handed it to Jiang Xiu after it finished writing. When Jiang Xiu saw the 2 words on it, his expression changed drastically. Even if he was calm, his expression was extremely strange. Even the way he looked at Cheng Lingsu changed. Because the green cow wrote 2 words, Divine Emperor. Thousands of thoughts went through his mind. Cheng Lingsu was the Divine Emperor. Did the calf recognize her wrongly? After all, people looked alike. But this was his youth. He had even seen the Divine Emperor. How could it recognize her wrongly? Are you sure? The green cow nodded vigorously. It was very sure. Judging from how it avoided Cheng Lingsu, it seemed to be worried that Cheng Lingsu would know this information. Could it be that Cheng Lingsu would become a Divine Emperor in the future? But not yet. If the green cow let her see it, it would reveal the heaven's secret. It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. Jiang Xiu couldn't figure it out. Cheng Lingsu grew up with him. With her current cultivation, not to mention 3,000 years, even if she was given 30,000 years, she might not be able to reach the Divine Emperor level. Jiang Xiu regressed from more than 3,000 years ago to the present. Could it be that Cheng Lingsu regressed from more than 30,000 years ago to the present? Jiang Xiu's knowledge was beyond ordinary, but at this moment he was in a mess. At this moment, Jiang Xiu's sense of superiority was shattered. All of his psychological advantages disappeared without a trace because Cheng Lingsu was much stronger than him when she was at her peak. This cow wanted to hug Cheng Lingsu's thigh. When she was still weak, this little calf was actually a scheming boy. No wonder it could become his mount. What did you write? Cheng Lingsu was on high alert. She felt that she could be betrayed by this man, and the cow at any moment. Show me the paper. Cheng Lingsu was not to be trifled with. She rushed over and wanted to snatch the paper. Jiang Xiu and the calf were both startled. Jiang Xiu directly put the paper away and put it behind his back to burn it. What are you doing? Burning the paper? Although Cheng Lingsu did not know why Jiang Xiu was so nervous, looking at her strange appearance, there must be something. What shady business? Jiang Xiu said, the secrets of heaven are hidden. Those who pry into the secrets of heaven will be punished by heaven. Cheng Lingsu was skeptical. Okay, I'm leaving. After such a commotion, Cheng Lingsu's anger had subsided. She turned around and was about to drive away. It was difficult to stop a car to go out. In the end, the calf did not give up and lay in front of the car again. Jiang Xiu looked at the calf's appearance. He was afraid that it was determined to hug Cheng Lingsu's thigh. Jiang Xiu's pride would never lower his head like Cheng Lingsu. He said, since it is willing to follow you, you can take it away. One day it may be useful to you. After saying that, Jiang Xiu turned around and was about to leave. Hey Jiang Xiu, are you crazy? If you have a cat or a dog, I can take care of it for you. This is a calf. How do you expect me to take care of it? If I take it home, my parents will think that I am crazy. Jiang Xiu ignored it. You're not looking after it for me. It's going to follow you from now on. Also, you and I are even. We don't have to contact each other anymore. After saying that, the door slowly closed. Hey, seeing Jiang Xiu refuse, Cheng Lingsu could not shout anymore. She looked at the calf and her heart collapsed. It was not right to leave it, and it was even more wrong to take it back. I will drive. Can you follow me? The calf nodded its head. This was the first time that Su had turned her head. Everyone passing by would look over. It was not easy to get home. Although Cheng Lingsu's house was also a villa, It was not 1/5 the size of Jiang Xiu's house. There was also no backyard that weighed dozens of kilograms. There was no way to place the calf. Just as Su was worrying, the calf shook its body. Its body blurred and shrank at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. In the end, it became the size of a dog. In the market, there was a saying that cats and dogs were bigger than dogs. This meant that they were pets. Cats that were small in size were fun to play with. Dogs that were big in size were more fun to play with. Calves were also big in size. When they were small, they were really cute. Su's eyes lit up. You can shrink? You should have said so earlier. You are so interesting. No wonder that guy raised you. The calf. Moo. Okay, then from now on, you will be my pet. Cheng Lingsu's house had a small yard. There was not much grass on the ground, so she called and ordered some fresh grass. Then she put the calf in a pen. The calf was very happy. It had a powerful backer now. It would have a good life in the future. Su sat in the yard and was a little absent-minded. The phone rang. Hello, Su, what are you doing? Are you cultivating again? Come out and get together. The few of you from high school are all here. Where are you? Dancing Square. Okay, I am coming. Cheng Lingsu was depressed. She decided to go and relax with them. This was also the biggest difference between Su and Cheng Lingran. Su was relatively more outgoing, while Cheng Lingran would definitely be bored alone. Nyo, stay at home and don't run around. I am going out to play. The calf moaned obediently and followed her without making a fuss. Cheng Lingsu went out of the door and told her parents that she had raised a beast calf. Then she drove to the square. Although the Cheng family's development was average, Cheng Lingsu's own cultivation was high. Ouyang Qian, Li Dan and the others still supported her. Su, you finally showed up. Now you have become a cultivation maniac. We almost can't see you. Cheng Lingsu sat down beside them. What's wrong? You don't look too happy. Ouyang Qian teased. What can a young girl have on her mind? She must be troubled by love. Needless to say, it must be for our Mr. Jiang. Cheng Lingsu was embarrassed. TSK, I will be for him. Stop talking nonsense. We have nothing to do with each other. An imperceptible disappointment flashed through her beautiful eyes. Your situation doesn't seem like it. No wonder. Jiang Xiu is now the #1 person in China. Ouyang Qian said, by the way, I saw Jiang Xiu a few days ago. He was watching a movie with your sister Rangran. Jiang Xiu was with my sister? Cheng Lingsu picked up the cocktail on the table that no one had drunk and said, it is not strange. He has always been close to my sister. My sister is the only one in our family who can talk to him. Ouyang Qian and Li Dan looked at each other. They saw Cheng Lingran holding Jiang Xiu's arm. The two were as close as a couple, but they did not dare to say this. Who would dare to bite Mr. Jiang's tongue? Did they not want to die? Chapter 458. Jiang Xiu planned to make a trip to the Dongxing Divine Continent. He was really curious about that place and did not know what kind of world it was. Cheng Lingran said, You're going to the Dongxing Divine Continent? Can I go with you? Jiang Xiu shook his head. That place is mysterious and unpredictable. I can come and go freely by myself. I'm afraid it will be inconvenient to bring you along. I should be able to come back soon after this trip. You don't have to worry too much. Although Cheng Lingran was reluctant to part with him, the news from the border said that planes and cars could not enter the Dongxing Divine Continent. There were no roads and there were cliffs everywhere. With her physical fitness, she would indeed be a burden to Jiang Xiu. Then you must be careful. Jiang Xiu nodded slightly. Looking at Cheng Lingran's concerned eyes, he asked softly, Is there any reaction in your stomach? Cheng Lingran's pretty face could not help but heat up. You're asking nonsense. How can it be so fast? Then I have to work harder. Rangran's eyes were more seductive. She scolded softly, annoying. The small lounge gave them endless joy. Jiang Xiu had been staying here almost every night during this period. The feeling between the two of them was becoming more and more like the couple in his previous life. The next morning, Jiang Xiu boarded a private plane and flew to the far east of the hemisphere. Now there were new routes from various countries to the Far East. Many martial cultivators wanted to enter this new continent to take a look. Unfortunately, they could only see some vague outlines from the outside, and could not enter from the inside. When Jiang Xiu arrived, he looked inside and saw that everything was in chaos. Has the chaos really just opened? Jiang Xiu had a lot of expectations for this place, and thought of many possibilities. The biggest possibility was that the new Dongsheng Divine Continent had not opened yet. Now his judgment could almost be confirmed. This made him very happy. Whoosh! He shot out of the plane, turned into a blade of light, and shot into the chaos. According to legend, before the primal chaos was created, Pangu created the heavens. With a loud bang, the primal chaos world gradually separated. The light and clear rose to become the heavens, and the heavy and turbid fell to become the earth. After Pangu fell, in the primal chaos, there was no time, no space, and nothing existed. The dusky world should have just opened, and time and space should have just begun. Looking at the newly formed world, Jiang Xiu was filled with excitement. To be able to witness the initial changes of the world was a great fortune. The various laws of the future had all developed from this moment. If he could see the changes of development with his own eyes, would he be able to comprehend the laws within? Moreover, it was said that at the beginning of the world, there was a chaos supreme treasure, the 36 creation jade butterflies. The creation jade butterfly was born from the collapsed lid of the cauldron of creation in the courtyard. Creation itself referred to the 3,000 worlds, and there were 3,000 Tao formations. Among them, the great destiny art was the head of the 3,000 Tao formations. If he could obtain the creation jade butterfly, his future achievements were something Jiang Xiu didn't dare to imagine. In addition, when the primal chaos first opened, there were a few other primal chaos treasures in the world. There were Hongjun primal treasures and Xiantian primal treasures. These were all treasures that the immortal martial continent didn't even dare to dream of. Now Jiang Xiu had the chance to obtain all of them. Thinking of this, Jiang Xiu relied on his greater strength and rushed into this world that hadn't been formed yet. This was also the place that he believed would become the Dongsheng Divine Continent in the future. He wanted to find the 36 creation jade butterflies. However, this place was dusky, and he couldn't see anything clearly. Even if Jiang Xiu used his eye technique, he still couldn't see clearly. This caused Jiang Xiu to have a very bold idea. He wanted to use his divine inscription mystique, and let out the first sound in the world. This was a little too arrogant. However, if he wasn't arrogant, he wouldn't be Jiang Luoxia. Roar! The divine inscription flashed, and the incantation spread out. The entire primal chaos world rumbled, and the sound spread out for thousands of miles. This sound would awaken those future ancestor gods that were still in deep slumber. The Laozi that Jiang Xiu wanted to find might be among them. After the sound resounded, a golden ray of light shone from the distant horizon. Although it was mostly covered by the primal chaos qi, it still illuminated this part of the world. A rising sun slowly rose in the east of this primal chaos world. Awesome! Jiang Xiu felt the warmth of the sun, and a lofty feeling welled up in his heart. What he was doing now was something that would be done by an ancient god whose name would go down in history. He felt that his own class had suddenly risen. Before those supreme beings completely awaken, I'd better find the creation jade butterflies as soon as possible. If it was snatched away by others, wouldn't I feel like I've lost 100 million? This part of the world was far bigger than Jiang Xiu had imagined, and its magnetic field was far superior to that of Earth. Flying consumed a lot of his divine power. For this reason, he took out the elixirs that he usually couldn't bear to use, and consumed them to replenish his divine power. Then he continued his search. Jiang Xiu searched for 7 days in a row. He still couldn't find it. At this moment, he was standing on a cliff, and there was a hint of worry in his eyes. He felt that he might have made a wrong judgment. This primal chaos world was too small, and it shouldn't be able to give birth to the creation jade butterflies that were born when the primal universe was formed. This was because there was already a world outside this place, and the creation jade butterflies could only be born in the most primitive times. Even if there were any treasures here, they couldn't be compared to the real primal chaos era. I'm overthinking. However, he knew that even without the 36 creation jade butterflies, he should still be able to find a primal chaos treasure. After all, this was indeed the beginning of the primal chaos, and the birth of all things could be seen. Jiang Xiu's face was filled with ecstasy. He saw a light spot flashing in the distance. 7 days, a full 7 days, he finally saw the birth of a treasure. Swoosh, he couldn't wait to rush over. The place where the light was shining was not far from here. When Jiang Xiu arrived, he was stunned. He saw a person. A person with long hair that fluttered in the wind, and a handsome ancient person. And in his hand was a treasure that was flashing with light. Someone had snatched it first. Jiang Xiu's gaze swept over the item in his hand, and his whole body trembled. It was a piece of jade-like jade. This kind of shape could be seen everywhere in the immortal martial continent. Because of the creation jade butterflies, the people of the immortal martial continent like to imprint their cultivation techniques into jade-like stones to preserve them. His throat felt unbearably dry, and he spat out 4 words with difficulty. Creation jade butterfly? It was actually snatched away by someone. The person standing in front of him had incomparably clear eyes. He seemed to be looking at Jiang Xiu. Before this, he had never seen anyone before. Fellow Taoist, where did you come from, and where are you going? Jiang Xiu said. I'm here to take the item in your hand. This item was originally mine, and I left it on the ground. I went to do something else, and then came back to take it, but it was taken away by you. This guy was so shameless that his face didn't even turn red. Oh, but although this person had just awakened, he wasn't stupid, he said. But when I saw this item, it was floating in the air. Jiang Xiu said. This treasure has a spirit. Maybe it's just playful. Fellow Taoist, can you return it? That person only looked at Jiang Xiu, holding the creation jade butterfly in his hand. He didn't seem to have any intention of returning it at all. He said, I also like this treasure very much. The creation jade butterfly was a primordial treasure. Its preciousness was enough to topple the entire cultivation world no matter which world it fell into. Jiang Xiu was betting on the ignorance of the person in front of him. But he wasn't stupid. To be among the first to awaken in the primordial chaos, his intelligence was definitely outstanding. Even if he didn't know that this was the creation jade butterfly, he could tell that this treasure was extraordinary. Jiang Xiu said, but this item belongs to me. How can you take it away? Hearing Jiang Xiu's words, the other party showed a thoughtful expression, as if he was trying to determine whether Jiang Xiu's words were reasonable. After a while he said, but this treasure is now in my hands. Shouldn't this treasure belong to whoever has it? Jiang Xiu shook his head and said, that's not the case. This treasure belongs to whoever gets it first. I got it first, and I just put it on the ground. You took it later, so this treasure should belong to me. Everything has to be based on first come, first served. The other party's eyes were clear. No. If you got it, you should have brought it with you. Why did you put it on the ground? There are so many treasures in the world. You can search for them everywhere. Why bother me? This was the creation jade butterfly, an incomparable existence. How could he give it to others? What's mine is mine. Could it be that you want to take it by force? Jiang Xiu's eyes gradually turned cold. He was also weighing in his heart. The other party was among the first to awaken in the primordial chaos. He didn't know how strong he was. Chapter 459. That person's eyes were incomparably clear, without a trace of impurities. He calmly said, you have killing intent in your heart. It's hard to cultivate kindness, but it's easy to become a devil. 1,000 years of cultivation can't turn you into a devil overnight. You should think carefully. Jiang Xiu sighed inwardly. As expected of the first batch of creatures to awaken in the primal chaos, he could actually see through his killing intent. However, his words exposed his weakness and fear. No matter which world it was, the law of the jungle couldn't change. There was only so much meat. Who wouldn't fight for it? If they didn't fight for it, they would starve to death. Trying to use preaching to make Jiang Xiu stop. If this wasn't weakness, what was? In the immortal martial continent, whether it was gods or devils, No matter good or bad, only the strong were respected. If gods were strong, devils would bow their heads. If devils were strong, gods would bow their heads. If devils were strong, gods would bow their heads. Give it to me or die. Since he had already laid his cards on the table, Jiang Xiu didn't need to waste his breath. As he spoke, his hair and clothes fluttered. The world was filled with killing intent. Roar. The first sound in the world came from his mouth. In the distance, the sun rose. At this moment, the world's laws were completely displayed. Facing an old monster whose depths he didn't know, Jiang Xiu immediately used his trump card. In his world, everything was decided by him. If one wanted to break the world's laws, the advantage of a small realm wasn't enough. One had to be suppressed by a large realm. For example, Jiang Xiu was a lower earth god. The advantage of a middle earth god wasn't enough to break his world's laws. Only a heavenly god could do so. This was the strength of the world's laws. It was also the biggest reason why Jiang Xiu dared to make a move. Of course, there were some special protoss or secret techniques that could break the world's laws. However, these were extremely rare. Jiang Xiu couldn't imagine what kind of existence they were. Kill. A strong light burst out from his forehead. The two of them were only tens of meters apart when an inch of light flashed out. At this moment, the time and space between the heaven and earth seemed to be stretched infinitely, and everything became slow. The man's pupils constricted involuntarily. He could feel the sharpness of the inch light. Everything in its path was destroyed by the saber chi. Even the tiniest specks of dust were destroyed. This saber technique was called the Six Senses saber technique. It was not released by the naked eye, but by the sixth sense. It was completely released by a kind of powerful divine sense. This was also the reason why Cheng Lingsu cultivated so hard. In fact, Jiang Xiu's saber technique at this moment was more accurately called the Seven Senses saber technique. It was released by his seventh sense. His world law had created a sense. The enhancement of one sense was definitely not an enhancement of one's strength, but an enhancement of a cube's strength. With a high base, it could be said to be an explosive increase, hundreds or even thousands of times. Such an enhancement was enough to trigger a qualitative change. Anyone who knew how to use the saber would be amazed by the power and sharpness of this saber intent. It could even cut through the fine dust in the air. When the man saw the flash of the saber light, his pupils constricted in shock and curiosity. He was curious about the chaotic world. Looking at the shining saber light, he curiously stretched out his finger. The flesh on his fingertip was cut open and blood spurted out. He saw that his finger had been cut open. This made him panic like a child touching fire for the first time. Break. A fierce force was released from his body. His finger turned into a ray of light that was brighter than the saber light. It actually blocked Jiang Xiu's inch light. Finally, the inch light slowed down and revealed its true form. It was a 3-inch silver light body shaped like a small saber. This, Jiang Xiu could not help but stare. He actually blocked his seven senses saber technique with his finger. This bastard, the first batch of awakened existences, was indeed extraordinary. The strength of his body was simply like a dream. Separate. Jiang Xiu chanted an incantation, and the inch of light suddenly disappeared. With another flash, it turned into even finer inch of light, and the fragmented inch of light rushed towards his opponent. Ah! With a flick of his sleeve, that person flew backwards. Clearly, he was wary of the might of the shattered light. That flick of his sleeve was incomparably slow, as if it was carrying a weight of over 10,000 kilograms. The powerful force was like the rotation of a millstone of the world, clanging as it blocked all of the shattered light. Before he could even catch his breath, Jiang Xiu had already turned into a beam of light and shot out. That person panicked and wanted to make a move, but found that the jade butterfly in his hand was grabbed by Jiang Xiu. He immediately pulled it tightly. Boom. The two powerful forces intertwined and collided violently. An incomparably powerful light burst out, almost covering the sky and the earth. It spread out with a loud bang. The surrounding rocks and trees were all blown away. Jiang Xiu felt an unprecedentedly powerful force pushing toward him. He could no longer bear it and was sent flying. The powerful pressure caused the divine blood in his body to churn. He immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. What an abnormal innate strength. After he landed on the ground, he propped himself up on one knee and looked up. His eyes were filled with a murderous aura, and the battle intent in his body surged. He saw that his opponent had also been sent flying by him. He landed on a rock far away and took a few steps back. Every step he took was powerful enough to penetrate the huge rock, causing cracks to appear all the way until the rock cracked. Although he had just awakened, he was able to fight evenly with an earth god just by relying on his innate divine power. His talent was really terrifying. For an ordinary person like Jiang Xiu, whose bloodline was already very thin, there was no way he could compare. There was nothing he could do. He had lost at the starting line. Where's the Jade Butterfly of Fate? Jiang Xiu now placed all his hopes on the Jade Butterfly of Fate. If he wanted to fulfill his ambition and become an expert in the universe, the Jade Butterfly of Fate was his opportunity. An unprecedented opportunity. It's not in his hands. Just now, he vaguely felt that the Jade Butterfly of Fate had flown away when the two of them were fighting. He suddenly looked up and saw the Jade Butterfly of Fate emitting a green light in the sky. After learning that the ancestral court existed in this world, and the immortal martial continent existed on the other side of the starry sky, Jiang Xiu felt that this world was huge. He was determined to get the Jade Butterfly of Fate. He was a born opportunist. When faced with an opportunity, he dared to risk his life. This was also the biggest reason why Jiang Xiu could stand out from a group of outstanding talents in Tianqing School, and eventually become the sect master of Tianqing School. Whether or not he could seize the opportunity was the key to his success. Bang! A crack appeared on the Jade Butterfly of Fate in the sky. More and more cracks appeared, and it actually shattered in the sky. What's wrong? Jiang Xiu and the man widened their eyes in shock. It's destroyed? No. Jiang Xiu's mouth was bleeding, and his hair was flying. He was like a crazy demon. His internal injuries were far more serious than they looked on the surface. With a whoosh, he flew toward the Jade Butterfly of Fate in the sky. It's mine. The man was not to be outdone. He also soared into the sky and flew over. The Jade Butterfly of Fate in the sky was like a light of colored glass. Jiang Xiu snatched the largest piece into his hands first. Even if it was a fragment, as long as there was something recorded inside, its value was immeasurable. The other party also snatched a large piece. The other fragments drifted away with the wind, eventually turning into sparkling energy bodies and disappearing into this newly formed world of chaos. Jiang Xiu opened his hand and took a look. He was holding a piece of broken jade in his hand. It was shapeless, and no one knew how much was inside. The other party also opened his hand and took a look. His face was full of regret. The Jade Butterfly of Fate was destroyed just like that. This was completely beyond their expectations. The Jade Butterfly of Fate was actually so fragile. In their opinion, it should be indestructible. The Great Golden Elixir Technique. The man glanced at it, and then looked up at Jiang Xiu. A trace of anger flashed in his clear eyes. Let's part ways here. The man was also quite excited about Jiang Xiu. He was worried that Jiang Xiu would snatch away what was left in his hand, so he immediately turned and left. Jiang Xiu snorted. He could not chase after him. Otherwise, with his personality, he would not have let that man snatch the Great Golden Elixir Technique, one of the 3,000 Great Tao. That was the ultimate treasure of an immortal cultivator. Immortal cultivators cultivated the Great Tao of the Golden Elixir. It probably contained all the mysteries of the Golden Elixir. It was really a pity. When the man disappeared from sight, Jiang Xiu also looked at his Jade Butterfly of Fate. The 11th Great God Sealing Technique of the 3,000 Great Tao. Absorbs the 6 gods and nourishes the divine body. Can set up a God Sealing monument, and refine oneself into a God Sealing artifact. Chapter 460. Let alone those ranked in the top 10. Even those ranked in the top 100 were heaven-shaking arts that had long disappeared in the long river of history. Learning just one of them would allow one to dominate the entire universe, let alone the Grand God Sealing art which was ranked 11th. If Jiang Xiu really mastered it, It wasn't impossible for him to rule over the immortal martial continent in the future. Although he obtained such an amazing art, Jiang Xiu didn't feel happy at all. Originally, he could have obtained all 3,000 Dao arts. In fact, he had already set his sights on the number 1 Dao art, the Grand Destiny art. But in the end, he just brushed past it. This feeling was like winning 300 million, and was about to redeem it, only to be told by the other party that your lottery ticket had expired, and you could only redeem 300,000. Although it was also a windfall, one could imagine the disappointment in his heart. In addition, the other party also took away a portion of the Fortune Jade Butterfly. It should be the Grand Golden Core art. The Great Path of Jindan was an immortal cultivation technique, and it was also endlessly mysterious. Who was stronger between gods and immortals had always been debated endlessly, and it was difficult to determine. Originally, he could have found an answer from the Jade Butterfly of Good Fortune. If the Great Jindan technique was ranked before the Great Investiture technique, then immortals were stronger than gods. Jiang Xiu hesitated for a moment before swallowing the medicinal pill. Gritting his teeth, he continued to search for treasures in this chaotic land. Since the chaos could give birth to the Chaos Supreme Treasure, the Creation Jade Butterfly, at the beginning of the chaos, then there would naturally be other chaos treasures. Obtaining them would allow one to possess unimaginable strength, and it would directly affect Jiang Xiu's rule over this world. But the result was once again greatly out of Jiang Xiu's expectations. He searched bitterly for over 10 days, but he didn't find anything. That was fine, but he actually didn't see any other living beings in this world. Logically speaking, the first batch of living beings should have awakened. Dragons, phoenixes, Chilants, demons, gods, demons, and the like should have appeared in this world. The demon race should have established the heavenly court and ruled over this world. But none of these happened, let alone the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. This world seemed to have fallen into a deep slumber. How could this be? Jiang Xiu was puzzled. After holding on for more than 10 days, his injuries became more and more serious. He felt that he should be at a disadvantage compared to the person who had snatched a part of the Jade Butterfly of Good Fortune. That person should have found a place to heal his injuries as soon as possible, while he had been busy for more than 10 days with his injuries. Could it be? Jiang Xiu was not sure, but he was pretty sure. That person should be the first living being in the world. According to the development of time and space, after obtaining the Jade Butterfly of Good Fortune, he must have spent countless eras to cultivate all the 3,000 great Daos. Then, time and space appeared in this world, and then it entered the era of the primitive tribes. But now, that person had been injured by him, and the Jade Butterfly of Good Fortune had been shattered by the 2 of them. He had only obtained the Great Gold Core technique. Even if he succeeded in cultivating it, it was impossible for this world to enter the era of the primitive tribes. Jiang Xiu looked at the mountains and lakes in the distance, and a strange feeling arose in his heart. If he had not stopped the first living being in the world from obtaining the Jade Butterfly of Good Fortune, that person would have most likely become an ancestor god. No matter how hard Jiang Xiu worked, he could only be under him and be dominated by him. Now he had stopped everything, but this chaotic world would not enter the era of the primitive tribes. Those chaos treasures, primordial treasures, and so on would not be born again. At the far end of the horizon was the sun that Jiang Xiu had summoned. Sunlight scattered from the sky, illuminating the earth. However, there was no sign of life. There was no time, no space, and no development. There was only one way for living beings to appear in this world, and that was to let people from the outside in. But now, it was still the early stage of the chaotic world. There was no passage of time here, and there was no space for mortals to enter. An extremely bold idea flashed through Jiang Xiu's mind. This was something that no one had ever done before. Even if someone had thought of it, they would not have had the opportunity to do so. Using the world's laws to absorb the chaos chi, clear up this world, open up space and time, and let people from the outside in. This way, they would be able to directly cross the primitive tribes and connect with the outside world. He did as he thought of it. Although his injuries were heavy, Jiang Xiu still wanted to try and see if his idea was feasible. If he succeeded, his world's laws would rise to another level. At that time, he would not be able to predict what kind of changes would occur in the world he created. Jiang Xiu's forehead glowed with an intense light, and with a swoosh, he soared up into the air as the second divine imprint on his body lit up. The second divine imprint was very simple. It only had 2 strokes, resembling the scars of a knife and fork. However, these 2 divine imprints contained boundless mysteries within. One represented the universe, the other represented the universe, and the other represented the eternity. They respectively represented time and space, and when the 2 were combined together, they would form the world. He held a long saber in his hand. It was Jiang Xiu's life-bound saber that was refined from the longevity talisman stone. He waved it in the sky, and his body flashed like a phantom. When the first saber fell, the entire world rumbled as if it was about to collapse. The saber flashed, covering the sky and earth, and flashed towards the border of this world. Around the world that Jiang Xiu regarded as the divine land, saber flashes fell from the sky with a whoosh. They formed a light screen that covered the sky and formed a space. When the second saber fell, the grass and trees in the mountains began to grow. The tree branches swayed with the wind. The mountains and rivers began to change. The lakeside began to flow. It was as if a button of time had been opened, and time sped up. When the third saber fell, the entire world changed greatly. Time and space began to combine. Loud rumbling sounds rang out continuously. It was as if a god was slowly carving out a world, slowly building it up bit by bit. Jiang Xiu's eyes were filled with exhaustion. After the third saber, he was almost exhausted. He leaned on the ground with the saber in his hand. The fierce wind blew his hair. Condense. As his incantation fell, the world's laws began to shrink. The chaotic energy in this world began to condense due to the shrinking of the world's laws. This would be a long process. Jiang Xiu's eyes grew heavier and heavier. Gradually his eyes closed. It was unknown how much time had passed. It might have been 10 billion years, 100 eras, or even longer. Jiang Xiu's entire body was covered with dust and fallen leaves. From afar he looked like a statue that had existed since ancient times, standing on the peak of a mountain in the distance. In front of him, a huge, white, turbid sphere had gathered. Moreover, it continued to condense. If those universe masters saw this, they would definitely be so shocked that their eyes would be wide open. The source of the world. Spring went and autumn came. Year after year, it was unknown how much time had passed. The huge, white, turbid sphere in the sky, which was like the sun, was now only the size of a luminous pearl. Its entire body was snow-white. However, within this small sphere, unimaginable, terrifying power was nurtured. The stone statue trembled slightly. His heartbeat started to beat again. His blood began to flow. All of a sudden, the surging power skyrocketed uncontrollably. His blood was awakened one after another. His eyes suddenly opened. 2 strong beams of light shot out from his eyes. Like lasers, they shot out thousands of miles away. His body was surging with energy. The dust and dirt that fell on his body dissipated. The peerless genius had awakened from his deep slumber. At this moment, a song of praise rang out between heaven and earth. The airflow around him surged. His long hair and clothes fluttered. The slumbering Jiang Luoxia had awakened. The source of the world and the world's laws in the distance were absorbed into Jiang Xiu's divine origin along with the strong beam of light. Suddenly, the blood in his body exploded with power that had nowhere to go. It was as if his entire body had exploded. With a loud roar, his godly body underwent an earth-shattering change. He broke through from a lower-level earth god to a middle-level earth god. Then he pounced on an upper-level earth god. The great change in his godly body caused Jiang Xiu to rise from the dead once again. Boom! He broke through again and entered the upper-level earth god realm. His power was still rising crazily. It was as if it was going to burst out again. However, Jiang Xiu did not meet the requirements to leave the earth god realm and become an Empyrean god. He was forcefully stuck at the peak. I have directly advanced to the upper-level earth god realm. Jiang Xiu was ecstatic. He looked in front of him. The world was bright. There was no longer silence. Everything was growing. The moment his heart started to beat again, the world here was connected to the outside world. It had time and space. It's done. I, Jiang Luoxia, have succeeded. Chapter 461. Jiang Xiu was incomparably excited. He had really opened up a world in the primal chaos. Even an ancestor god might not be able to open up a small world. Not to mention he was only an earth god. Not only that, Jiang Xiu had also absorbed the primal chaos energy of heaven and earth because of this tempering. His strength had soared by 2 realms, rising from a lower earth god to an upper earth god. In Jiang Xiu's 3,000 years of cultivation, he had never experienced such a shocking increase in strength. Even in the entire immortal martial continent, such a situation had never happened before. This was too heaven-defying. Wanting to break through to the next level, even for demigods, was exceedingly difficult. After condensing a godhead, wanting to break through again was an extremely difficult task. But now, Jiang Xiu had actually broken through consecutively in a single breath. If Jiang Xiu were to tell this to his friends in the immortal martial continent, no one would believe him. I really broke through. What a powerful godhead. The power of Jiang Xiu's godhead had soared to the point that even he was moved. The main source of a god's power was the godhead. The strength of the godhead naturally meant that the god was strong. It's really an upper earth god. He turned his head and listened carefully. A water droplet fell from above. Suddenly, Jiang Xiu retreated towards the water droplet. Under the powerful pressure, he was instantly crushed. Boom! Suddenly, a loud explosion rang out. Streaks of water shot out from the water droplet. It felt like a bullet had shot into water. The water droplets scattered in all directions at an astonishing speed. The destructive power even caused the air to shriek. With a wave of his hand, the water droplets revolved and condensed into a 10-meter-tall giant water ball. It shot out into the distance, emitting a strong gray light. It contained an immeasurably powerful energy, as if it wasn't a water ball but a planet. Hundreds of meters away, everything in the distance had already been crushed into fine powder by the pressure. The water droplet continued forward until it crashed into a cliff. It was so far away that no sound could be heard. However, the huge mountain collapsed and caved in. Not bad. Jiang Xiu nodded in satisfaction. His face was still cold, but his heart was as happy as a child. He couldn't remember the last time he was so ecstatic. Such power was more than just not bad. Without the law of heavenly water, he could actually use a drop of water to destroy a mountain. If he used the power of the godhead, it would definitely destroy the world. If he went to the ancestral court now, the time would be greatly shortened. It might only take a few days. This speed was definitely close to that of a heavenly deity. It was also at this moment that the crowd outside this world noticed that the chaos on this continent had disappeared, revealing the state of mountains and rivers. Someone excitedly shouted, "It's done, we can go in." The crowd on the outside immediately rushed in. Just as they had expected, there were high mountains and steep ridges, seas and lakes, and there wasn't even a decent road on the ground. It was completely in a primitive ecology. The spiritual energy here was much more abundant than outside. Everything on the ground was full of vitality, and the living beings were all having attributes. However, the world that Jiang Xiu opened up, of course, couldn't be compared to the world opened up by the ancestor god, who had mastered the 3,000 Tao techniques. But it was definitely not something that the living beings on Earth could compare to. The news quickly spread. Many bold adventurers began to enter this land, but it seemed that ordinary mortals still couldn't enter. Many mortals could only be blocked outside. As for those who had appeared, they had the power to enter this world. It was also on this day that a sound came from heaven and earth. The sound was grand and magnificent, and lotus flowers kept blooming wherever the sound went. It was a gorgeous scene. It was actually the image of a lotus flower with a tongue. Jiang Xiu curiously rushed over, and saw a handsome man in a Taoist robe sitting cross-legged on a futon and preaching. It was actually the person who had competed with Jiang Xiu for the jade butterfly of creation. It's him. As his scripture continued to spread, the sun became bright and beautiful. The flowers and plants on the ground grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. All the animals in the depths of the forest ran over and sat in the distance to listen to his preaching. After seeing Jiang Xiu get up, he bowed slightly to Jiang Xiu. This world was opened up by Jiang Xiu, so he was better than him. This was a form of respect. Wu Ming, greetings. May I know your name? Jiang Xiu accepted it calmly. Jiang Luoxia. He pointed his finger and a futon fell in front of Jiang Xiu. Fellow Taoist, if you are interested, sit down and listen to the scripture. You and I can also discuss. What Wu Ming had imparted was the scripture of the great Jindan technique, which was a method of cultivation. Jiang Xiu had also cultivated for 3,000 years, but the mysteries of the Jindan that he had glimpsed were not as good as the great Jindan technique. However, with Jiang Xiu's arrogance, how could he accept such kindness from Wu Ming? Wouldn't that be lowering his status? You and I have different paths. There's no need to discuss. Jiang Xiu had the great investiture technique in his hands, which was a completely different path. Then please do as you wish. Wu Ming smiled and nodded. Then he began to preach the scripture to all living beings. As he explained the scripture, countless living beings were enlightened, and some even transformed on the spot. More than 10 days later, outsiders finally arrived. When they saw this scene, they were greatly shocked. This scene only appeared in myths. Now that it was happening in real life, of course, they would not miss it. They also found a place to sit down and listen to the lecture. Jiang Xiu had already left. From the moment he saw Wu Ming preaching the immortal scripture, he knew that this world had already followed the path he had set. The human world and the demon world already existed, and this place would become the immortal world. When there were more and more living beings here, this place might become a place like the immortal martial continent. It was also possible that someone would come out to maintain order, giving birth to an existence similar to the heavenly court. Above the horizon, Jiang Xiu's figure flew. Before leaving the immortal world, he looked back. This look was full of disdain for all living beings, arrogant and insufferably arrogant. I am the ruler of this world. This trip to the immortal world took a month. After Jiang Xiu returned to Jiangnan, he still wanted to go into seclusion to cultivate the great investiture technique. Fortunately, he thought of Cheng Lingran and the important matter of having a child, so he did not go into seclusion. In a small resting room, Cheng Lingran was held in Jiang Xiu's arms. Her forehead and the tip of her nose were glistening with sweat, and her face was indescribably tender. Don't be so long next time. Jiang Xiu looked at the ceiling and said proudly, "There's nothing I can do about it, I'm just too talented." Annoying. Who said that? If you dare to go out for a month again, see if I won't let you touch me. These days, Cheng Lingran had been thinking about him every day. Jiang Xiu asked, "I've been away for more than a month. Is there any news from your stomach?" Cheng Lingran said, "What if there's nothing? How could it be so easy?" Jiang Xiu's interest waned when he heard this. His mother wanted him to have a child, but as his cultivation grew, the chances of having a child would decrease. Could it be that he really had to wait for a few decades, and wait for his parents to leave before he could return to the immortal martial continent? What, do you like children that much? Cheng Lingran's seductive eyes looked at Jiang Xiu. In the past, I didn't think you liked children that much. My mother likes them. Cheng Lingran said. Auntie is already at that age, so she definitely wants grandchildren. Minor repairs. I'm still worried. What if I can't give birth to a child? Jiang Xiu said. That's not because of you, it's because of me. A divine discoverer's biological abilities are weaker than a normal person's. Ah, so that's how it is. Cheng Lingsu said. Then Jiang Xiu was also very depressed. He had never considered this problem before, but now it was a big problem. Jiang Xiu asked, right, how's Su doing recently? What's wrong? Jiang Xiu said, just asking. Cheng Lingsu said. Su's cultivation has improved by leaps and bounds. According to her, she's already a god, but she's never told anyone about this. What she lacks now is an opportunity to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Already a god. So fast? He had only left for a few months this time. Even if it was his own saber arts, there was no reason for it to improve so quickly. Jiang Xiu couldn't help but think of his old man's azure ox. He felt that this matter had something to do with that calf. Also, is there anything strange about her? If Cheng Lingsu was a divine emperor, how long would that be? What was her opportunity? But from the current situation, she hadn't even grasped the minor fate technique. I'm not sure. How about I ask Su Su out, and you guys can talk about it yourselves? That you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.